Delicate getting the first pick. Oh, get three, Pyro, get three with the
Wade Kid putting on a clinic. 14 down. Oh!
Experience tranquility.
Let's drop the beat.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to a special edition of the Beat Drop. My name is Captain Jack, and I will be hosting tonight's video where we're going to talk about equity in gaming. Now, some of you may ask, what is equity in gaming? Well, we'll get to that in a little bit, but first, let's go ahead and introduce our lovely guests, starting with Fishbowl at the top. We'll just kind of work our way down. Give us your name, the team you're on, or that you associate with if you don't play with the team, and your favorite voice line.
Hi, my name is Fishbowl, or Corey, that's my real name. I am the founder, owner, player for Paradise Overwatch, and my favorite voice line is a Zenyatta voice line, where it is the I think, therefore I am voice line.
That's a good one. Cinnamon is joining us from their kitchen as they're getting their cats out of the food that they had set up to prepare. So, Cinnamon, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Cinnamon. My name is actually Jace. My pronouns are they, them. And I am founder, owner, parent in general of Flying Lions Jetpack Hats org. And my favorite voice line is something that I've probably screamed at everyone at one point or another. Mother knows best.
Very nice. Rainbow.
Top quality.
Hi, my name is Rainbow. I played on Ultraviolet in Season 5, and in Season 6 I'm going to be GMing and playing for Infrared. And my favorite voice line is, "Thank you, Baptiste. Oh, you're welcome."
Baptiste never gets any thanks, man. All right, Vet.
Alright, I am Vet. I play main tank. I was on Holy Jalapeno Season 4, and last season I was on Tempest. My favorite voice line is Honor, Justice, Reinhardt, Reinhardt, Reinhardt.
I mean, it sounded exactly the same as the actual voice line. I literally couldn't tell the difference. So amazing. And Vila.
Yeah, I was unaware we got Ryan's voice actor to join us.
Yeah, I know,
It's
right?
pretty incredible. But hey, everyone, nice to be back on here. I'm Vila. Of course, my real name is Joe. I was the GM and head coach of Jetpack Cats this season. Played on Jetpack Cats in 4, and favorite voice line is "Ooh, Scary" by Tracer.
Nice. I have to say, I actually have a new voice line that just came out recently during the Halloween event, and that is one that you can't even activate. That's with Ryan Shatter now. For the Crusaders! I'm just sad that you can't hear it when you actually shatter. It's always as the enemy you hear it, and that's unfortunate because I would love to hear that when I hammer down some enemies. Would be nice. Come on, Blizzard, help us out here. All right. And as you can see, our VOD for tonight comes from Event Week, where we did the admin pugs. We felt if we were going to do a community-based podcast, that's probably the best VOD for us to show. You know, the community kind of came together and did a lot of great things. So you'll be noticing a lot of teabagging. I've seen it a lot already. So nothing like a whole bunch of teabagging to bring the community together. So.
Amazing. When the
What other
gloves
reasons
come
are to
off.
play games?
Exactly, right? I mean, how can you get into gaming at all without teabagging? So as I talked about earlier, tonight's topic is equity in gaming. Now you may ask what that is. Equity in gaming is looking at different aspects of gaming in the eyes of maybe minority type groups. So when we're talking about the LGBTQ community, when we're talking about persons of color, when we're talking about mental health or physical disabilities, you know, anything that you wouldn't normally associate with your ideal gamer, I guess, and kind of what would that look like if we were to make gaming equitable for all? And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about this evening. So, to start off with, I think it's best that we kind of know everyone's history in gaming. Some of you have answered this question before during the end of season award winners interviews. But go ahead and just give us a brief synopsis again, if you could, starting again with Fishbowl. Where did gaming start for you, and how did you end up here in Tranquility?
Oh boy. Gaming started for me on PC in like 2000 and oh geez. Whatever the release year of Minecraft was, that's when I started.
I
I
want to say
was
that
like
was actually like, wasn't that? No, it wasn't 19. I want
it,
to
it
say
was like
early
early
beta
two.
was very early. I don't
Yeah,
remember
it
when
was.
it was though.
That's when I started playing games
Okay.
on the computer. But I played Minecraft, but I did not start really getting into gaming until I met the love of my life for 9 years, which was an MMO. Um, to which to this day I think I have now 4,200 hours in that game. Um,
Wow.
so I played Star Trek Online. That was the name of the game. Big Trekkie fan. Love Star Trek, and I have 4,600 hours in that game. Played that mostly for a long time. Got really big into the community with that game. Was ranked in the top 10 in a PvP arena in that game in the whole world. Um, and after that, I kind of stopped playing that game through my first bout of mental issues. Don't play it much anymore. And then somewhere along the line, I think around 2016, the day that we all remember probably that Overwatch came out.
Mm-hmm.
I picked up Overwatch on the open beta. I have been playing it ever since. And about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I got approached by somebody to start a team. And after about 8 months after that team was started, we found our way into Tranquility. So here we are.
Awesome.
That's how I got here.
Well, we are so glad to have you, Cinnamon. How about you? How'd you get started in gaming, and how'd you end up in Trank after all those years?
Uh, I actually started in 2016, right after Overwatch came out. One of
Oh.
my boyfriend at the time was a very avid gamer, and he kept trying to get me to game with him, and so I kind of just gave in. I was like, all right, fine. Um, Ended up really, really enjoying Overwatch and kind of just picked it up as my main game to play. Um, I ended up joining Tranquility because I was LFT, just as a Mercy main, honestly. I have like over 800 hours on that hero. Don't ask me why or how. And I got picked up for Wrecking Crew. Those of you that know the infamous team Wrecking Crew, I'm sorry. And I ended up getting a lot of responsibilities like finding scrims and stuff, because our captain back then was 15. Let's just say that. There's a lot of other things I could say. But he was 15.
Ah, yes.
And so he ended up getting banned from the community, and then I had messaged Cav at the time, like, I don't know if he, because we do have to disclose our alt accounts, and I had disclosed them to my then captain, and I didn't know if he had disclosed them to the admins in the community. And so I just messaged Cav and I was like, hey, I just want to be straight with you. Like, I have 2 accounts. I only had 2 at the time. And I was like, these are my accounts. They're ranked pretty similar, but I am playing on my higher one. Just letting you know. And he was like, great. Well, just to let you know, I made you point of contact for the game tonight. And I was like, oh, thanks. Wonderful. And that is a story of how I got ownership of that team. And I, of course, did trials. We rebranded, etc. And now we are the aerial felines.
Woohoo!
Lovely.
All right. Rainbow, how about you? Where'd you get your start in gaming, and how'd you end up here in Tranquility?
Well, I started very, very, very young. Um, most of my life, I've been a console player, and
Woo woo!
a lot of Microsoft and also Nintendo primarily.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, my dad, one of his ways of helping me learn how to read was he'd sit me down and he'd play through like Halo or any kind of game really, and he would read the dialogue to me.
Wow.
Um,
That's
so
cool.
it's one of my fondest memories as a kid. But I started really young. Around the time I was in middle school, I got my first laptop, and I kind of branched into a community that I don't think is really well known by many people. It was called Beyond, where people created fan games that were like 16-bit. People could join online. It was pretty basic. And from there, I went on to join a Call of Duty team, believe it or not.
Interesting.
And I played that for a while. Not one of my finer moments in life, but it was definitely a part of it. And once I had kind of grown out of the Call of Duty scene, I had recently become friends with people who were playing Overwatch.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have a computer I could play it on, and I remember I would go over to my friend's apartment so that I could play on their computers. And I got my own account around season 10. And from there, I built my own PC, uh, played on a team that was supposed to compete in Open Division and disbanded before we could even get that far.
Ouch.
And from there, through a series of unfortunate events, I happened to meet Fishbowl, and he invited me to
Look
join
at that.
Paradise before it was Paradise.
Look at that. I'm always there to save the day.
I mean, was it really you saving the day? I
No.
did
Really,
feel your.
really like saving, or
I mean, I filled the empty support spot, so I
She
think I
saved
saved
my
you.
okay. She saved my ass hard. So let's not get it mixed up. She saved us.
And yeah, from there, I have since joined Luminous, and yeah, I'm in this wonderful community.
Awesome. That is quite a trek there. Hey, how about you, Vet? Where'd you get started, and how'd you end up here?
I too started at a very young age that I don't remember, but I know I was young because the Wii was released around 2005 when I was born, and that was my first console.
Mm.
Um, Actually, it may have been 2006. Doesn't matter. First game was Mario Kart. I'm pretty sure I was
Classic.
decent at it. And then I got a Xbox 360 for Christmas one year. From then I got hooked on Call of Duty Zombies for a couple
Oof.
years. Um, didn't really have any particular community I was in. I eventually got a PS4, got into Overwatch through that. Then I moved over to PC, was LFT, a guy called Abe. If you know him, he said, hey, wanna try out for my team, and I had no idea what I was doing at the time, so of course I said yes. Um, I ended up making the team and getting cut about 3 weeks later,
Wow.
if that long. That team was spare change, by the way, so yeah, kind of dodged a bullet. Went to play in a GGNA team, rolled GGNA, went back to Trank, and I played for Jalapenos, and the rest is just history.
Wow. Goodness gracious. Lots of great treks here. Vila, how about you? Where'd you get started
Yeah,
and how'd you get here?
I answered this during, of course, the Harmony end of season awards episode, so I'll try to be brief. My beginning is pretty similar to Rainbow's, a lot of like Nintendo. Starting very, very young. Um, Gaming has pretty much always been something relatively close to me. Started on early consoles like Super Nintendo,
Mm-hmm.
and also played a lot of RuneScape at a young age. So pretty much ever since I was like 7, 8, 9 years old, I was playing online games, interacting with people, online. Um, Also, a big shout out to Space Cadet Pinball as well. That's an awesome throwback. But I went and transitioned from being pretty much console exclusively to PC in 2015 when I was in the military. I, of course, didn't have like my TV or my console on me. And once I kind of had money of my own, I bought a gaming laptop, started playing more on PC, and have been doing that ever since. And got into Trank a little bit before season 3 when the preseason was starting, with the intent of mainly just casting. And I ended up posting for coaching. Unexpectedly ended up playing and then going back to coaching. And then season 4 came, went back to playing, and then season 5 just happened, and I went back to coaching. So kind of all over the place. All over the place. But yeah, that's been pretty much everything.
Awesome. I myself am an old timer compared to many of y'all because my gaming started in the 1990s. I started on the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo. You can actually find
Pog.
a majority of my recording on the Discord end of season awards because that was the fewest people we had, and that was the only spot I felt would be best I fit in. But to kind of sum everything up, at least for tonight's gaming experience, when I got into the military, I had played several games before that, several different consoles, both Nintendo. Started getting into Xbox when I got into the military, where I got into FPSs like COD and Halo. And when I left the military, I was unemployed. I was a single parent. Didn't really have a lot of funds to be able to like go out and meet people and stuff like that. So many of the times I'd spend my nights just kind of gaming and hoping to find people. And I ended up getting recruited by a gaming community I think is still running pretty strong now called Die Hard Gamers Incorporated. Um, I was part of one of their Call of Duty teams for about 2 years before I started school. Worked my way up the ranks to becoming president of one of their most popular divisions of Call of Duty, or in Call of Duty at the time. We traversed 3 different Call of Duty games, I believe, before my tenure was up. So we went from I believe it was like uh, Black Ops 2 to Ghost to something else. I don't remember the order of them. There's so many nowadays. But we made those jumps, which is typically pretty difficult because obviously you got to get everybody on board and then you got to go recruiting again. And that's when I really learned about the importance of gaming communities and kind of what they could provide. Again, at the time, I was a single parent, not a lot of people to interact with, and that was my way of, um, you know, kind of finding people to interact with that I didn't have to like go meet in person or go talk to on the phone. Like all I had to do was turn on my Xbox and boom, there they were. Um, It was later when I met my wife that I won't say that I've gotten into PC gaming, but I've opened myself up to PC gaming. I'm still very strictly a console player, and she got me into Overwatch. So if you want to blame anyone, blame Lady Jack. And I've been playing Overwatch on console for about 3 years now. Got into casting about 2 years ago with a small community. Have kind of traversed many communities, finding my way to tranquility, and here I am. And I've yet to see a better run community that does it for community's sake than Tranquility. I don't think I can say that enough. This is really one of the if we're truly going to talk about equity in gaming, this is probably one of the greatest communities for that. It's far from perfect. No community or person is, but I would say Tranquility goes out of their way a lot to try to make sure that the community is treated equitably, and everyone has a shot to be their best here. So, with that being said, that kind of wraps up our history portion. So now we kind of know where everyone's coming from, and as usual, I'm the old fogey of the group, so that's great. Uh, let's go ahead and get into our questions for the evening. We're gonna start kind of, I guess, softball, I suppose, and then we'll kind of get into the meat and potatoes later on. So, starting again with Fishbowl, tell us, what is your most positive experience that you've had in gaming, and what makes it so memorable?
Okay, I have two
Okay.
that are roughly the same, maybe the same feeling, but it's only happened twice in the like decade or 2 decades I've been playing video games in a community. One was in my MMO days, where all I did was grind an MMO, and it was the moment that okay, Star Trek Online has a guild system like every other MMO on the planet,
Mm-hmm.
and I was part of a guild for like 2 years. I sat on their like management council, whatever they want to call it. Big nerd mode, I know. And I sat on that for a long time, and the server was actually a democratically run organization. So every 6 months to a year, we would elect a new president of the board, basically.
Wow.
And I didn't even run. I got wrote in to
Wow.
be elected to it.
Wow.
And that moment was really, really nice for me because at the time, I went to private school as a young kid. I didn't finish in private school, had 2 years of public school in high school, but and in private school, I was very much the black sheep. I've always been the black sheep in my life around the people that I am. I've always been kind of weird. Um, and I didn't have a lot of friends outside of like my parents' friends. I grew up around adults. I didn't grow up around a lot of people my age. Um, so I got elected there, and I had a group of like 10 people that actually I thought of as my friends for the first time that weren't already my parents' friends. They
Mm-hmm.
were my friends. Um, so that moment, and then kind of an exact same similar situation when I started Paradise. Um, that team has become a very integral part of the way that I live my life, and without them, I don't think I would have a home to go home to at the end of my days. Now that I am an adult, and I don't have my parents or my parents' friends to go to anymore, I have to. That they are my family now,
Mm-hmm.
and that they are memorable in themselves. No matter how much of a shitheads they are, they're still memorable.
Wow. And one of them is sitting right here.
I mean, to be fair, that is the exact same way I talk about like the jetpack cats and lions. I'm like, y'all are shitheads, but I love you.
No, it's,
Yep.
I do the same thing with ultraviolet.
Yep. But yeah, that's my two biggest experiences. So I would sum that up to being that there have been two big times in my life where I did not feel like I had people to go, like I didn't have friends to go home to, or to talk to anything about in a lot of places in my life. And those two times, gaming gave me that. So
Wow. That's amazing. All right. Cinnamon, how about you?
I have a lot of positive moments and positive experiences, but I think the only common thread amongst all of them is that I was playing with friends. Like Fishbowl, I grew up with like a ton of adults. Um, and I was really isolated as a child, socially especially, just because we're really, really Asian. And it set me like really apart from all of my peers. Um, but I am also first gen, so like I am too whitewashed to be Chinese, but I'm too Chinese to be white, if that makes sense. Um, so I was always like the odd one out, the black sheep, not really part of a social group, in quotes, but just like being meeting new people, meeting new friends, creating a community, creating a family, like that has been the most memorable and positive part of what I'm doing and how I'm doing, just because there's always people, there's always friends, there's always family somewhere, anywhere, and that's always nice.
Awesome. That is a good feeling for sure. Rainbow, how about you?
Similar to Fishbowl, I too have two separate instances that really, really stick out to me. Uh, around the time of the Xbox 360, I had been playing Red Dead Redemption Online, and the way the game functioned is you could go around and do basically whatever you wanted. They had little side quests, or you could just be an outlaw and kill other players in cold blood.
Oof.
So there was one particular day where I had formed. I had so many people that just wanted to team up with me, that I had the largest posse in this server. And
Wow.
from there, there were 4 people in particular that wanted that, uh, I guess, stuck around. And at the time, really for a good portion of my younger life, I never really had a lot of friends. I've always had an issue of, uh, it's really hard for me to break the ice. Online, it's not as bad of a problem, but in person, I am really, really bad about breaking the ice with people. So I didn't have a lot of friends, and my sense of community came from these 4 people. It was to the point where we were literally logging on to Xbox every single day and playing with each other, and that's what I went to. The second one that really sticks out in my brain is when I was invited to join Paradise. At the time,
fuck yeah.
for the longest time, um, I had been really upset over the disbanding of my open division team that I had been a part of, and I really wanted to get back into it, but I just had no way to do it. I didn't know where to start. And at that particular moment in time, I had gone through a very traumatic event in my life, and Fishbowl offered
Ain't that
me a
the
spot
truth?
on his team. And without them even knowing it, they were my support system, and they really helped me through a lot.
Wow. That's amazing. All right. Vet, how about you?
All right. I kind of got like one and a half. So this will be kind of weird, but the first one is just kind of Easter eggs for charity. In general, like I said, I was part of the Call of Duty Zombies community. Um, And basically, what they did in Easter eggs for charity is they had 1 month every year that they did for about 2 years and then stopped doing it, maybe longer. They just got together. They tried to speedrun all the maps. They had teams, and they just raised a bunch of money for charity. Anytime a big community kind of does that to come together, I find it really entertaining and just really memorable.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one's just all the little memories with all my friends, sitting on the catwalk in Derice shooting zombies. It's a classic. It's a classic memory. So whether it's that or pinning into the enemy team and having my support scream at me again, you know, it's those memories that are the best
Gotcha.
to me.
Classic.
All right, Vila, how about you?
Well, interestingly enough, when I first saw this question in our prep of what our most positive experience was going to be, I was trying to think more about Overwatch, and the biggest section, the biggest portion of my online gaming comes from playing Call of Duty back in the day when gaming was the most toxic it ever was. Hopefully, we never really reached that level again back in like Modern Warfare 2, COD 4, Modern Warfare 3,
Let's
all that
hope.
kind of stuff.
That's only
And
hope.
yeah. And so I was thinking at first, like, well, it's definitely not from that time. And I started thinking a little more, and it actually is from that time when I was, 15, 16, getting really into like playing Xbox Live, getting more into Call of Duty, and ended up getting nestled in with a really tight knit group that I played with pretty much every day. Playing like competitively on game battles, just doing like a lot of stuff with them. And the usual kind of story where it, led to us being more open about how we were personally and things in our actual lives, to the extent to where several years later, when we still talk, and it's been like 10 years, and one of who also lives in my state of Florida, I've met up with more than once and hung out with him, and another one I sadly wasn't able to attend, but even invited me to his wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And so just that group that I've been able to know and at times hang out with and just have in my life has been incredible.
So I'm seeing a common thread through all of our positive experiences, and I'll note on that here is almost a sense of family. Because looking back on my experiences, because I have two, and they relate to the two communities that I feel that I've fallen in love with the most over the years, which is my time during uh, DHG Inc. and then my time here in Tranquility, and it's finding that sense of family, that sense that you have people that you can talk to. You feel pretty much about anything. I'm an extrovert typically when I'm not emotionally exhausted, and so for me to be able to kind of uh, go out and make friends normally would be easy if during that time I wasn't a single parent, and people would surprisingly judge you for being a single father. Probably just as it was interesting because you'd get the, oh, like, good on you for being a single dad. You don't see many of those, but then you'd also get the, oh, you must not be reliable. What'd you do to mom? This, that, and the other thing. So, finding DHG and in a similar fashion, finding Tranquility right before the pandemic started, or during when the pandemic was starting, um, really became saving graces for my mental health. They gave me an outlet that I could kind of connect to, feel, I'm at this point, Lady Jack and I have so many children in this community, we can't keep track. Like, we don't even know where they come from anymore. They pretty much just walk up to us and like, hey, we're your kids now. It's like, okay. And it's so odd, but it like just it fills me with so much happiness to just not only know that I have people that are there for me, but know that I can be there for other people as well in that fashion, just to be able to support them in whatever way I possibly can. So I think that connects with a lot of our experiences and talking about how we've essentially found gaming families that have either something that we built that we didn't think would happen, or in really dark times helped us out of situations that could have been a lot worse. So um, family's great, chosen family even more so. um, all right, our next question for the evening. um, I'm gonna go ahead and make this an open forum one, so feel free to share whatever whatever y'all would like in whatever order you want to. Like I said in the beginning, we have all different representations here. We have the LGBTQ community. We have persons from mental health. Those with real life children like myself. Um, we have uh, uh, physical disabilities. We have all sorts of different representations here, races, things like that, um, to kind of show the diversity that gaming truly is instead of what it's looked at as. And so, in doing so, this question highlights, what would you say is one of the biggest misconceptions about one of your identities or your identities as a whole when it comes to gaming? So, no need to like raise your hand or anything like that. Just kind of open forum it. We'll do our best to kind of track who's talking and whatnot.
So we're not moving down on this one?
Nope, not
Like down the
moving
list?
down. Just kind of leaving it open to whoever wants to talk about their experiences.
Well, okay, I'll start because I'm a potato and just have to start, or I'll forget what I'm gonna say.
Fair enough.
I think it is. Well, it's kind of anti to this question, but I think it is important that it be talked about. Is the fact that sometimes, or maybe actually more than a lot of times, I actually saw a video from one of my favorite creators where he kind of talked about a little bit about this question in gaming, and gaming, in a lot of ways, doesn't suffer from the same issues that normal human interaction will suffer from. Um,
Hmm.
gaming's One of gaming's most powerful strengths, and yet also one of its greatest weaknesses, is the internet's. And I'm terrible. I'm going to butcher this word because I can never say it. And that's anonymity.
Anonymity.
Yeah,
Anonymity.
that one. Yeah, I'm like Nemo with an anemone. I can't say that one.
No
And
worries.
an enemy.
Enemy.
Yeah, I can't say it. It's the internet itself, and that word. Um, they kind of make up a lot of what gaming is. Like gaming is an extension of the internet in a lot of ways, especially the communities that all of us have kind of mentioned that are so important to us.
Mm-hmm.
They allow us in a lot of ways to be who we want to be, or even sometimes hide who we are, because no one, at the end of the day, we can hit disconnect or we can hit the power button and we disappear.
Yeah.
It gives us a sense of connection, but also a sense of disconnection. It is a very, I don't know, like the consequences of your interactions are lesser here. If you get into an argument with somebody over the internet, you can just go away. You don't have to be around people that you don't enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
There's less pressure. So I think for a lot of us, or I'm going to say for me, but maybe some of the rest of you will feel the same way, that because there's not as much pressure, I feel like a lot of us can be more open about our identities. And I would think that probably a lot of people in this room, maybe not all of gaming, are relatively forward thinking and relatively open minded. So I don't think a lot of us have to really suppress a lot of our identities to each other, because it's that wall of, you don't actually know me, and at any point I can just walk away. And you talk to people, you get to know them, and I think that's a really important part, because I think at least I have always struggled with that, people judging me for how I act in public, and they look at me or whatever, and they make all these conceptions, these was the assumptions about me just from the 5 minutes that they talk to me when they first meet me. And in the online gaming world, it doesn't happen as often. So I think biggest misconceptions about our identities is actually that we have them at all. We're a lot closer to being, human beings first here than we are in the real world.
Interesting.
And I think that is why gaming is so good. Now, you guys can all disagree with me if you think it's all one big opinion, but to me, I think our identities, though they are important, gaming and this section of the internet allows us to just be humans for once, or we may not have to feel so weighed down by what society labels us as. Now, you can enjoy your labels, but you don't have to feel like you're going to get shot in the face for them. And I think that's important.
Actually, to kind of branch off of what Fishbowl is saying, um, shoot, sorry, my brain soft reset itself.
No worries.
Very fine.
Um,
Happens. Yep, take your time.
To kind of branch off what Fishbowl is saying, I, in my own personal life, have crippling depression and anxiety to the point where it's a disability to me. It affects my ability to go out in public. It affects my ability to live day to day. And if you were to meet me in person, unless you had already established some sort of connection with me past just being my acquaintance, I I would not be the same person at all versus if you met me online. The nice thing about the internet from my perspective, and one of the biggest misconceptions I feel, is that when I go online, I'm not I'm not pretending to be anyone. If anything, I feel like the internet and gaming in general has given me a place where I don't have to feel the pressures of I'm losing my words right now. Uh, I feel like I can be myself completely unfiltered. I don't have all of these external things that are just absolutely draining me.
Mm-hmm.
The internet, I feel like I have a full battery and it's not consuming any power, if that makes sense.
Yep. No, I totally get that. So surprising to many of you at home, most of these names aren't our real names. Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
crazy
Right.
to think. Shocker.
like my name's not actually Jack. Just saying, I'm
Imagine,
not actually
imagine
a
not
captain.
having your real name in your username.
Well,
Could not be me.
so
You're
funny
bluffing
enough.
me.
So funny enough.
Next
my
thing you're going to tell me
original
Colonel
use-
Sanders wasn't actually a colonel.
I mean, technically.
Of course, the joke is that he wasn't. But he
What's
wasn't.
funny what's funny about the usernames is I'll go out in public and somebody will like say the word rainbow and I'll turn around and I'll be like, "What?"
Oh yeah, people will say cinnamon, and I'll be like, "Yes, that's me.
That's
What's
me.
do you need something? Do you require?"
I did have a thought about the question in itself, though. When it comes to misconceptions, it's a little difficult because I don't think a lot of things are negatively attached to mental health when it comes to gaming, just because it's not something that often will come up in a game or anything of that nature. I think in terms of like LGBT and things of that nature, it's a little more common. It's a little harder for me to say because in terms of like being LGBT, it was only something that I kind of became aware of myself like a few years ago. And just I personally don't put a whole lot of stock in it. And of course, by that I mean, everyone is kind of different in terms of like how they view it and how much of their identity it is. You have
Gotcha.
some people who are LGBT and it's, like you go onto their social media pages and it is very publicly displayed and advertised with pride, and it's like a very close near and dear thing to some, which is fun. And then I'm kind of on the other side of that spectrum, to where once I kind of like realized it, I was just like, oh, this is just another part of who I am, okay. And I kind of just moved on. But I think when it comes to a misconception about being LGBT is that I guess all of us are these kind of like crazy like radical like SJW types who have like a ridiculous kind of like political agenda that everyone has to abide by, which is like, I mean, sure, there's always going to be at least somebody and like some kind of percentage of people that fall under like a stereotype or a negative connotation. But I mean, yeah, oddly enough, a lot of us are just pretty, regular ass people.
Surprising, people being upset about wanting to just
Oh
exist.
my goodness.
Crazy.
Honestly.
Imagine existing, guys.
Imagine
Honestly.
existing.
Yeah.
Well,
Imagine.
like on the internet, I come across very, very feminine. Partially because my voice, and partially because this voice, which is mostly turned my customer service voice. And you get a lot of bad reactions both ways. Like if for me it's if I speak and if I don't speak. If you don't speak, especially in Overwatch where communication is really important, people flame you for not talking, and it is what it is sometimes, but at the same time but
I think
the
girls
like
have it worse than
the moment you get on mic, especially because I tend to use my customer service voice a lot on the internet, especially if I'm not comfortable around people, like I will immediately slip into that customer service persona, specifically, and you'll get shit like, hey, we have a girl, we're gonna lose this, or you'll get dudes hitting on you. Like earlier today, I was playing and some dude went, "Hey, do you want to be my e-girl?" And like immediately,
Oh my
I go,
gosh.
"I'm lesbian."
Or
That's like that's like my immediate first reaction, just like, "Sorry, man, I'm lesbian." I am actually demisexual and like demi-romantic, and that's a whole different story. But my first thought was like, cut this off immediately. No, 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 no go here.
I don't know if this is a common thing with anybody else, but one thing that I used to experience a lot is I would get guys that would go on mic and they would be like, if you give us your Snapchat, we won't throw the game.
Oh my god.
Yeah. I've
Really?
gotten shit like that too.
I've actually never heard of that.
Wow.
Or like
that's
they
nuts.
pay for your Snapchat, or like, are you a Twitch streamer?
Yeah.
And then they'll be like, if I donate, will you do this? Or like send feet pics. It's so weird, and the atmosphere becomes so awkward, especially if I'm solo queuing. Like if that's why I try to duo with other people. That's why I try to find friends to play with, because it gets so awkward, and
if you have
Yeah.
friends with you.
no thank you. Or like
Yeah.
I'll find a man or a boy, whatever, someone that sounds male, and I will be like, this is my person, please defend me, defend my honor.
Defend my honor.
I mean, the current person. Like, usually it's like upsetting or muffins or like someone else, and then they'll just be like, what are you doing? Shut up.
Oof.
And I think that's part of what we're getting into tonight as well, is that unfortunately this is not new in gaming. I completely had forgotten that I wanted to start with this, but if you've ever watched Adam Ruins Everything, they actually did a great section about how video games became what they are today, especially when it comes to the relation of sex and gender for video games. And they talked about that back in, like, I want to say it was like the 1970s, 1980s, when video games started becoming really popular. Very similar to now, the toy aisles are just divided. Like, you have a couple of aisles that are all girls' toys. They're baby dolls and kitchens and Barbie dolls and all kind of what we would consider feminine type toys. And then you have all the male toys, the action figures, the cars, the weapons, and so they were like, okay, well, if we're going to market video games, who should it go to? And they decided that video games back then, when there wasn't an electronic section, would be marketed in the boys section of the toy aisle. And that is a stereotype that has continued on to today, where we feel that as boys and as men, we have some kind of, I don't know, like a bestowed upon gift that this is just for us. And there are some people that really live up to that in the most toxic ways possible, like we've been explaining so far.
Yeah.
That, you know, this is just a place for men. You know, if females play, they're the backline. You know, they're the supports. They're the mages. They're not the ones that are in the battle. They're the ones supporting the men that are fighting. You know, and that's kind of why we wanted to do this podcast, because despite the fact that, you know, as I said earlier, Tranquility is a great example of what a good community could look like when talking about equity in gaming. We are only 2,000 members of a much larger gaming sphere.
Definitely.
So,
Like one thing that really hit me when the news came out was I'm gonna totally butcher her name because I'm a terrible person. Geguri, the former like tank player from the Shanghai Dragons. The fact that she got hackizated, like she's a really amazing player, and she got hackizated, and like male pros literally said, "I will quit Overwatch and I will leave the scene if she really is that good." Like
what?
yeah,
Really?
Yep.
Yeah, that
There-
Yeah,
there
she was
was-
a Zarya player, and her
she was
game
a
was
Zarya
that
player.
incredible.
and
Yep.
her tracking was really good. And
Was-
as far as I know, one
was
person
that like a
like
gender thing?
yes,
Yeah.
Yes.
100%.
they were
threatened.
like, "She's a girl, she can't be this good.
Yeah, she can't. Yeah, they
There's no
believe that.
possible way she can be this good because she's a girl." And like
Yeah, because I know there's other people that'll do stuff like that for other players.
yeah, and so like that to me was something that really hit hard, just because like it's really hard to break that glass ceiling into being, you know, a pro player, quote unquote pro.
I think
And
another.
it's a very male dominated place just because of things like that.
Actually, in regards to that, I can't remember specifically where I found the information, but there was a YouTube channel that dug a little deeper into why these problems persist still to this day when gender norms are kind of being let go of. It's acceptable to be feminine, masculine, or anything in between. It's okay to be yourself. And one of the things that they started to notice is that they feel a lot of this is perpetuated because for a period of time between early 2000s to modern day, first person shooter games are primarily played by guys. And women, while there has been a drastic increase of women and young girls playing video games, they tend to lean more towards RPGs and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
And so
we're actually hitting a whole bunch of questions we were gonna ask later tonight. So I'm
We've
actually
been
pretty
dipping into a lot of different things.
pretty glad that we're talking about this now. You know, we've already hit the anonymity aspect. We've talked about inclusivity
that.
in esports. You know, and now we're talking about kind of you know, identities in gaming, and like you know, this was a question that we were going to talk about later. Just the amount of acceptance depending on what games you're playing, because we see that also in game development. Like if you look at early games, very many times can you name, probably before 2010, on one hand, can you name 5 games that had a female protagonist? Tomb Raider.
Ouch.
What's the
I was about to say Tomb Raider.
Yeah,
Tomb Raider's the first one that comes to mind. I think one of the original Borderlands was before 2010. So
Silent
kind
Hill
of-
3?
What was it called? Metro?
Yep.
Metroid.
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 Although
yeah.
Samus is always thought of as a male, is actually a female character. In case you didn't know,
I think a lot of people at this point do.
I would hope so. I would hope so. But like, it all stems back to that original, what side of the aisle do we go to? And even game development has had such a struggle trying to get female protagonists, female story. I cannot tell you how toxic Borderlands 3 has been. Especially when you saw what was the name of that DLC? It was basically Guns, Love, and Tentacles. That's what it was called. It was the marriage of Wainwright and Sir Hammerlock. So a gay couple who in this universe have been established since the very first game that Sir Hammerlock was gay. There was a big uproar about there being a DLC dedicated to the marriage of a gay couple. Like, how? Like, for me, it just doesn't make sense that if you're someone that enjoys this game, why would you get angry at this point that they're talking about it when that's literally what the game's been about since the beginning? I mean, you have Mr. Torg, who is supposed to be like this super macho, guns, explosions, rawr, I'm so ripped, talking about how respecting women is the most manliest thing you can do. Like, that's the way that Borderlands was designed, yet you have these people now that are talking about how, oh, that's absolutely disgusting that they dedicate a whole DLC to gay people getting married.
Oh, I think there's a lot of people out there that play those games like that because guns go burr, and I want to watch things blow up. It's not so much like you have your people that play games because they are enthralled with the storytelling that games can give us, and then you have people that want to just watch big pretty explosions. Like it's two different. There's lots of different types of people in the world. I think that's where it comes from because, I mean, we've all ran into our fair share, I would imagine, of gaming halfwits that don't even know anything about the game that they're playing, but they just know how to shoot people, and that's all they care about. They know how to loot, raid, pillage, and basically be a Viking in the video game. That's I can't tell you how many people that I have played with that play a game, know nothing about the story, and literally just play it because it's pretty, and they can blow stuff up. And
wow.
Like Gmod in itself was born out of that concept. Like that's Gary's mod was born out of the concept of, oh, you don't really want to do story, you just want to mod a game and blow stuff up and do stuff like that. That's how Gmod became a thing. Like they made a whole game because people didn't care about story, they liked the engine and they just wanted to mess around with it.
Okay, but in defense of Gmod, there
Oh,
are
I'm not
plenty
saying
of
it's a bad
people.
thing.
There are plenty of people that want to play the game because they want to be a soda can and hide from their friends.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of people that want to play TTT and prop hunt and stuff. But
I'm sorry.
But it's gifted us some of the most memorable moments for a lot of, in the gaming world, middle-aged people that, started in the early 2000s, like probably a bunch of us. Like, most of us probably played Gmod at some point. If you started playing games before 2010, you probably picked up Gmod at some point. And it did give us a lot. But the initial concept of Gmod was brought around because people didn't really need a story. They just wanted a big, giant sandbox to play in and do whatever they wanted in. And I think I'm going to tie this to Overwatch. I think as you look at gaming history, that is one of the points that makes Overwatch stand out so much, is they have built a world built around their poster character, which is basically a poster of inclusivity. It's the first time we've had a female lesbian, poster character that is widely accepted to be one of the most iconic, characters in all of gaming. there's so many people that play Overwatch and picked up Overwatch because they logged into the game for the first time in 2016, found their way to Tracer, and that was it.
Wow.
That was the hook, line, and sinker for a lot of your like streamers. If you ask them what made them love Overwatch so much, they will say it was playing Tracer for the first time. And I think Blizzard with Overwatch really like home run. I try not to give Blizzard too much credit because Blizzard, but but they really knocked it out of the park on some of their marketing with Overwatch. Like they really took a lot of really awesome steps forward for the community and the way that they've made their world. I don't know if anybody's reading the inclusivity, not inclusivity, what am I doing? The comic books about Tracer that are currently coming out like month by month currently. But it's all about inclusivity. It's all about that omnic agenda of let's bring the omnics into the fold. Let's bring people that are different from us. Let's stop persecuting people. And it's Tracer's journey in that whole thing. And I think that's one in particular character. I know that she came out in 2016, but I think that character's, you know, ideas and its identity really pushed a lot of gaming in the right direction. And I think that that's going to hopefully be a theme that we see continue. So more people will understand that gaming is more than just gun skill burr.
And I think that leads to another interesting point of, the people who play a game and they're just kind of, oh, I just want to be entertained, gun go burr. And, which is fine. Like, obviously, yeah, it's a video game. It's meant to be played for fun and enjoyment. And, you also have a lot of people from that camp who are, Jack, how you mentioned like that relationship in Borderlands 3, I think you said. I've like never really played Borderlands. I don't really know anything about the lore or anything behind it. But I know The Last of Us 2 was also something that was brought up in this regard fairly recently, and people who were like, oh, I don't want like this SJW propaganda shoved down my throat. And it brings up the conversation of, people who say that kind of thing when it's like a character just being gay or, like being bi or something is just kind of like instantaneously and automatically like suddenly SJW propaganda. And I mean, obviously, yes, you can get to a point to where it's pandering, and that's something that really bothers me. Like and this is something that transcends gaming in general, which I feel like a lot of these points transcend gaming. But when it comes to games, movies, TV, when a studio or in this case, a game publisher or developer are going to talk about like, oh, like we're going to include X or Y character that is like from this kind of LGBT group or some other kind of marginalized group under a guise of being progressive, when in all actuality it's just pandering or like a marketing stunt, which is something that always gets me, like that pisses me off personally. But yeah, I don't really know much about Last of Us 2 either. Like some have said it's really good. It's very polarizing.
Yep.
Some are like, this game is just strictly SJW propaganda, 0 out of 10. And some people are just like, you're just like a transphobe or a homophobe or whatever. And, it's great. I don't really have much of my own thoughts about it because I've never played it or seen much of it, but that's something that I see a lot.
All right, so our train has left the tracks just a little bit there, but I wanted to check, does anyone else have any other big misconceptions about your identity in gaming? I have one, but I wanted to see if anyone else had one before we finish and move on. All right. So the one thing that I have, and we've kind of noted on it a little bit, but the impact of mental health on gaming is not what you'd normally think. I find it really funny because I'm a really outgoing person that people are like, you can't have depression. That can't be further from the truth, folks.
Yeah.
So Captain Jack, the way that I view myself in gaming is, I grew up acting a lot as a kid, all the way up until high school. I've had the opportunity to act in a couple of things after that, but not very much. And so, when I enter the world as a gamer, I almost see that as kind of like a different personality, like a different part of my whole being. So for me, I could start the day incredibly depressed. Like many of you know, I was not doing so good before we started tonight. But as you could tell, I am very excited, happy, good to go now, and you wouldn't know the difference if you hadn't have heard me before the recording started. So it's not so much that I'm hiding it, which I think is another thing that people think is that, oh, you're just hiding who you truly are. No, it's that I'm trying to enjoy what's in front of me. And I don't want to allow that baggage that, that my mental health can cause on my brain sometimes to impact that. And that can be also a really big impact in gaming itself as well. You can have some people that have very small goals of getting to a certain place in a game, and it's great for them. But you have those really hardcore gamers that look down on that and be like, oh, like that's nothing, like I did that in a couple hours, yada yada. And it's like, but where are you at? Where is your mind at when it comes to this? So I would just say that when you're thinking about someone in the gaming space, and as we kind of covered, like the identity that comes with being a gamer, vice what your everyday identity is. Many of us that are restricted in our everyday lives find this as a way to be very freeing. That allows us to be the better version that we wish ourselves could be. And so I think that that's something that we should always be thinking about, is that just because someone's having a rough day today, just because someone made an achievement that, you didn't think was a big thing, doesn't discount how important that is to them. So, I actually rearranged some of the questions while things were going on, only because we've already talked about some of these topics a little bit. So I figure, why not finish answering the question? So, gonna reopen the floor once again for this one. How do you feel anonymity, as we've kind of been talking about, plays a role in gaming culture? This can be both positive or negative. We've kind of covered both ends of the spectrum, but I wanted to see if anyone else had more to say about it.
I think I have one thing.
Okay.
We kind of touched on how being anonymous can lead to, you trying to be like the better person of yourself, or
Mhm.
trying to express yourself a little bit more. But it also leads to the people that just say what they want to say because they can. There's no consequences,
Yep.
really. And that's kind of one of the bigger issues in gaming, is there's all these people that just don't take into account that other people are just people at the end of the day, and everyone's just trying to have fun. But yeah, you see it in all games. I know before we were talking about in W2,
Oh boy.
and how W2 lobbies were, but
Yeah.
it's not as bad with Overwatch, but still, you've got people that'll
Mhm.
call you toxic for not being toxic, and then there's of course people that are going to call you bad, but there's no real consequences about it at the end of the day, unless you just do something blatantly racist and Blizzard's like, I don't like that, you've been reported too much.
Well, even then, it's in terms of a consequence, it's still very light and it's very localized to that game and just being able to use chat. And yeah, I
Yeah.
think anonymity is pretty much everything. It plays a humongous factor into our identities online. And like Vet was kind of alluding to, when you're anonymous, I mean, a lot of us, like for example, am a kind of a person where even if I was like a teenager, I tried to have like a mentality of like, okay, if I wouldn't say it to this person, I don't want to say it online. And, you have some who don't feel that way. And it's just, I now have this blank slate. I am anonymous. I have the luxury of not seeing the face of the person that I'm talking to, and not having to read their facial expressions and their body language or their disappointment or their emotions when I'm talking to them. And it just becomes this, like this cesspool of just very, awful, uh, incredibly negative things. And so I think as long as anonymity is there, I just don't think you get rid of that. Just because for those people, they do not have any kind of incentive to behave in a way that isn't that. But to try to end that on a positive note, we, again, going back to like Modern Warfare 2 lobbies and everything, we have definitely come an extremely long way since then, to where, you know, we kind of police each other and just kind of say, you know, hey, you know, saying shit like X, Y, or Z, you know, is it really all right? And to where, I mean, I was 15 listening to grown 40-year-old men telling 10-year-olds that they were going to murder their family because they got killed in Call of Duty.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, that was a very common occurrence.
Those were
You know,
the
very
days, folks.
Yep, y'all know. I'm not preaching to the choir here, I know, but you know, stuff like that, and just like the phrase "kill yourself" just being a very common thing. And so, you know, of course, obviously, we think now, you know, if you hop on a game of Overwatch, you might see something like that every now and then, but most people who are active in like gaming communities and who are active in chat will openly say like, hey, you know, we shouldn't say those things now. Yep. Like we understand that is definitely over the line for something like a video game. Just in general, you know, don't say that, but especially in the context of, you know, a harmless video game.
I have like 3 things I want to say. I'm going to try not to forget them because I'm going to fishtail, but I'm all over another comment, another question that we have. So I'm going to try not to forget because I'm going to blatantly run all over another question if I start talking.
Okie doke.
So.
Anyone else want to add in? Rainbow, Cinnamon?
Not at the moment, because just like Fish, I don't want to go into a question that we haven't gotten to yet.
Gotcha.
I will say, I think it's weird how sometimes people will just say stupid stuff and it won't even be a joke. Like a lot of times when you're with your friends, it's a joke. You know, you laugh it off, especially in real life. But on the video games, when you can just say "kill yourself," I don't know. There's some weird about it that just makes you not take it as serious.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a bit of conditioning from all of us people that have been playing for the last 15 years. Like, you know, if you grew up in Modern Warfare, I know we keep going back to MW2 lobbies, but like if you grew up in that era, it's kind of like the song "Anything Goes." Like we are numb to that level of toxicity, and that is sad.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we are used to hearing "kill yourself." We are used to being called all of the worst names in the book because I'm trying not to step on other questions.
No worries.
But we are used to that. And that's another thing about the gaming community is it can be very like conditioning because all of our personalities are completely different than what they would have been without some of these worse interactions. But they're also completely different because of some of the better ones. And I think that's something that has to be talked about too. Is that we've talked about how shit the communities can be, or like the overall gaming community can be, and I think that's why so many of us retreat into our areas of the micro communities like Tranquility, or our even smaller than that, our own centered group of people, because outside of that, and I think that's kind of why Tranquility was formed, I'm pretty sure, was to give a better version of that community that we all wanted to be a part of. And that's a big deal because it is an unavoidable monster in the closet that if you go into a ranked lobby, you're not going to get much of it, but you're not going to get none of that absolutely terrible toxicity.
Yep.
So, yeah.
All right. So let's go ahead and move on to our next question then, talking about inclusivity. We kind of mentioned this before with one of the Overwatch League players, but let's dive a little deeper. How do you feel about inclusivity or lack thereof in esports, and why or why not? Again, this will be another kind of open forum question. Talk about it as you will. Obviously, we know that esports still in the history of gaming is still a very relatively new thing. And as we have talked about in the history of gaming and have seen in esports, it is very male dominated. So I guess, why do we feel that is?
To kind of
Yeah.
draw back to what I mentioned earlier,
Mm-hmm.
I feel that there tend not to be as many. I sorry, I'm tripping up on my words.
No worries.
I feel like esports tend to be less inclusive on the gender front, especially because calling back to what I mentioned earlier, men typically tend to be the largest player base of first person shooters, and women tend to be the largest player base of other types of games like puzzle games or RPGs.
Yep.
So I feel like that does play a part of it. If there's a smaller group of players, then it's harder to pick out pro players from that smaller group. But at the same time, I feel like to some degree the the discrimination that we face, in a sense, like the berating, the oh, we're gonna lose because we have a girl on our team, all of that also heavily contributes to it. I I have managed to stick through video gaming, like through that part of the gaming community, and because I was exposed to it through Call of Duty.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so
Yeah.
desensitized to it that I can just brush it off. But to some degree, I do feel like that tends to play a part in it. And then another big factor that I feel has to do with it, and I'm sorry if I'm rambling and it's incoherent.
No,
Um,
you're fine.
I'm very anxious right now.
It's okay. It's okay.
um, the only instance of a group of women playing on an esports team was there was a team in a League of Legends tournament. I can't remember their name. I can't remember
I
specifically.
was going to
Oh.
bring this up.
I
I'm
know
glad
what
you're
Yeah.
bringing
you're
it.
talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
the team was going to fold because they didn't have a starting lineup, and they decided, okay, we're just going to take a bunch of girls and put them out there, and they didn't do well at all. So after I think somebody can correct me on this because I'm a little fuzzy on the details. They only played a handful of games, and because they kept losing, the organization just decided to shelf the idea altogether.
I mean, to be fair, when you put a bunch of plat League of Legends players
Yeah.
against like Challenger League of Legends players, they're gonna get rolled.
No,
They're
Yeah.
gonna get rolled.
I understand, but at the same time, I feel like a lot of people draw back to
Oh yeah,
that
totally.
specific example, and people will look at that and be like, okay, well, the girls can't keep up.
Yeah, I think there's like the two big reasons. There's of course the like we're talking about why women aren't in is because stereotyping, but the other
Yep.
one is just genuinely like men with their big old testosterone will enjoy more violent video games, the big old shoot pal gun games, more than girls. Um, a lot of the time, if you ask a guy to choose between Call of Duty and Animal Crossing, he'll probably choose Call of Duty. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, they'll probably choose Animal Crossing. And that's partially because just how it's been marketed in the past years and kind of how it's been divided for a while. And there's just never been anyone to kind of stop that divide. But
Ooh,
Well,
yeah,
this is
that's
gonna
the
be
other
really, really
part about it.
random. But Cloud9 has actually does have an all-female Valorant gaming team.
Woo!
They unveiled
Oh, that's
that
a good note.
recently.
Leave it to Cloud9.
That is a very good note.
Yeah.
Leave it to Cloud9.
Are they not plat players?
I
I'd imagine
don't
not.
know.
I mean,
I
I don't
don't
know how the
know,
ranking
but
system works in Valorant.
I don't know either. But I do know that they were tweeting about like winning a tournament or something recently.
Nice.
That's pretty pog.
yeah,
And
that is really fun.
I was snooping because I'm nosy, and I was like, "Woohoo, female gamers!" One of those gamers is actually transgender,
Wow.
male to female, and I just thought it was really nice for like just for the inclusivity of it all in general, just en general, that not only do you have an all-female roster, but you have, you know, someone from the LGBTQ plus community just there, and like I just thought it was really nice. I'm rambling.
It
No
really
Yeah, I
worries.
is.
understand.
And
I'm sorry.
oh, I feel like I should add, I didn't really bring up anybody from the transgender community because I personally don't understand that perspective of it. The only perspective that I've ever seen of it is just I'm big strong man, you small girl playing game, you
Mhm.
can't shoot thing. Yeah, that like that's pretty much the only perspective I have on it. I
Well,
feel like gaming should be a safe space for everybody.
I
I'm gender fluid, so I fall under the non-binary umbrella, which also falls under the transgender umbrella. And it was just really nice to know and to see that like not only is someone a pro player, but they're a pro player for a really, really well-known organization, and they're
Mhm.
out there and, you know, transgender, and it was just
Yeah,
really nice.
awesome.
That is really cool.
I did want to
And
bring up firstly what you were saying, Rainbow, about that league team. I think it was pretty clear all of us knew about it.
yep.
But what you were saying about like how I guess people saw that and thought like girls can't hang, I think I would disagree. I think pretty much everybody saw that and knew that it was just a horrible, horrible move by the company. And I think it was always more attributed to the fact that they were like lower level players who, regardless of gender, like they shouldn't have been there. You know, they
Mhm.
were not equipped to be on that stage, regardless whether they were male or female or whatever have you.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I think we're not paying attention to how currently undeveloped esports is. It's still
Mhm.
very, very young.
Mhm.
And I think it's more so only a matter of time before it gets more inclusive. Overwatch Contenders, for example, has had a lot of female players,
Mhm.
more than a lot of people know. And I used to follow it pretty closely, like even like other regions like Australia and everything. I would see like a lot of teams actually had female players. And beyond that, like we look at physical sports and early on, especially like baseball, Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier, like how white dominated sports were in like early American history.
Yep.
And of course, how, we see how that has progressed over time. And I think
Yeah.
esports is going to follow a very, very similar route in terms
Yeah.
of race as well as gender.
I also want to point out a lot of supporting staff for esports, like for Cloud9, they have like a lot of their managers are female. C9 Chrissy, she manages I think their LCS Academy team. Riot Games has a lot of hosts and analysts that are female. For some reason, I find analysts are mostly like if a female is a caster, they're mostly the analyst, but that's okay. I love it. Um, and I mean, I just like seeing the fact that they're there, and maybe at some point they'll move to play by play. I also see like Sabby, Custa's girlfriend. She also works a lot with Evil Geniuses, and like a lot of the support, like sure, esports teams might be really, really male dominated, and that's we'll get there eventually, if that makes sense. We'll even it out eventually, especially since it's really young. But a lot of the supporting staff you'll find is female. And
I know.
I just want to shout out like Froskaren. She is a LEC, League of European Champions, that's League of Legends, host. She is not only a female, but she is LGBTQ. She has, I believe, a female partner. So
Wow.
it's really nice just to see, like, sure, it's not much, but it's there.
Yep.
If anything, with Overwatch, I would, from my personal opinion, I would say that Overwatch has been revolutionary in
Huh.
the competitive gaming scene. simply because Overwatch in and of itself is a game that is based heavily around inclusivity. There are so many different characters with eh, sorry, my brain's going at
No
1,000 miles per
worries.
hour. Um, Overwatch is revolutionary to gaming, not just from the game itself, but also in the fact that there are plenty of female content creators for Overwatch. There are plenty of
Mhm.
high elo
Very
female
true.
players. There are plenty like it's I feel like Overwatch is the catalyst for things to start changing more, you know? Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
And not only does Overwatch have like a really diverse, like, whatchamacallit, player base,
Cast?
but
Oh.
they have a really, really diverse cast. I guess that's a
Yeah.
good word too. Like
That's what I was trying to say, thank you.
there are so many people from not only like different they're different ethnicities, like, and there are different languages that you hear all the time. Like the voice lines are all different. There are different languages. Like I saw May and I was like, that's me, because like I can say every single one of her voice lines like in Chinese perfectly, and it's great. It's wonderful, and like I love all the little nods they do to culture. One of May's voice lines, it's in Chinese and it's a poem, and I'm very very bad at remembering everything, but like I heard it and I was like, that is a classic Chinese poem. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Overwatch, you know, represents the neurodiversity community as well. Symmetra
Yep.
is autistic. That's the another one that Overwatch has. Champion, you know, I mean, we all love the car wash, but at the same time, they have a they have an autistic character in their game, um, and that's I will agree very wholeheartedly with Rainbow. I may give Blizzard a lot of shit, but when it comes to the progress that Overwatch has made, not just in the game itself, but in the culture around Overwatch, Blizzard is that game is doing a lot of the right stuff, and I think that partly contributes to why Overwatch has been so much of a phenomenon since it all started. Um, and I would like to make a statement about like we're talking about uh inclusivity in esports, and we've been talking about like gender and identity inclusivity. I want to kind of shift it towards cultural inclusivity. Um, the world is a very diverse place, and anybody that's been or has is from a different part of the planet can tell you that every single culture on the planet values something different. And especially at the higher level of a good chunk of esports. I'm not going to say all esports because using the word all is way too powerful.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that particularly now, I don't know where everyone is from. I'm sure there's some Canadians in here, but I am from America, and I'm sure there's a good chunk of Americans in here too. America itself, and I'm gonna try not to step on another question, doesn't exactly culturally accept gaming all that well. Um, I don't talk about my Overwatch team to people in public. I don't tell people about it because um I get judged for that. Why do you spend hours and hours a day managing a team that doesn't make any money, that doesn't do anything, that you waste all this time and effort on, and it does absolutely nothing for you? And I think America is a prime example of why that kind of cultural suppression of gaming in general. I think that kind of is why older people, not all, but older people farther like my parents are pretty old. I have older parents. My dad is in his 60s. And I'm in my 20s, my early 20s. Um like those people don't understand and they don't recognize a lot of what we do sometimes
Mhm.
because they one don't have any idea what it is and they never grew up with it. They don't understand how integral it is to us and they suppress our desire to be involved in it sometimes. And I think America in itself would have a lot more inclusivity of itself in the esports higher elo esports communities if that wasn't the case. You have places like Japan and places like South Korea that openly push and accept people who want to be professional video game players. They have classes about it. They have
Wow.
it like in their high school, they have classes
Mhm.
about it. They have gaming class. They have literal class time in their government required schooling about video games that
Wow.
you can play. Like that's nuts. And people wonder why is high elo, esports dominated by, the Asian side of the world. It's because they actually accept it. I
Mhm.
mean, and I know that in contenders, which is, tier 2 in Overwatch, you do have a lot of non-Asian players. But if you look at the demographics of high elo esports across the world, it's really dominated by people that are not American because America doesn't give a rat's ass. They don't recognize it as an actual skill, being able to actually do these things that some of us do or those people do that are high elo players. They don't we don't talk about it, and I think that's a big part of the inclusivity problem is a lot of cultures, put gaming in the dumpster fire because they don't care. It's not if you're like me and from the Southeast United States, hi howdy y'all. It's not football, so who
Yeah.
cares? Like
So
it's not. Yeah. So that's my point.
all
Well,
right.
There you go.
So I'm gonna catch you right there, and I'm gonna shift our question to more fully cover this real quick. Did anyone have anything else to cover about the inclusivity and esports aspect before we move on?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Um, only other thing I wanted to add is Zoe, I absolutely love you. You're amazing. That's the only thing I wanted to add on. I love seeing females in gaming. I love seeing all types of diversity in gaming. Going back to very quickly, the event that the Holly skin for Symmetric came out, I actually went online and looked up what Holly was, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, like the holiday for Indian culture. And wow, like how amazing is that? Like it's my favorite skin now, just because of what that holiday represents. So
Hmm.
I think that there's a lot of room to grow, definitely in esports. I wouldn't necessarily agree that because esports is mimicking how sports started, that it's supposed to be essentially whitewashed and that's all that's allowed. I necessarily agree with. Male dominated and all that jazz. I would hope that we have grown past that. Obviously, we have not yet, but I also agree that we should hopefully move forward in that aspect soon, very soon. But the next question actually ties into what you were talking about there, Fishbowl, and is what stereotypes do you see perpetuated about your gaming identity by the mainstream media? And so, as you were kind of already talking about the fact
I
that
just
in America, American media does a really great job of saying video games are bad for you, period. End of
okay.
story. Like,
Okay.
there's nothing good about video games.
I'm gonna get on a soapbox,
oh
and
yeah.
I will try not to. I will time myself and limit myself to like a minute and a half.
Okay.
Fish
Okay.
loves the soapbox. Don't worry.
I feel like everybody here is gonna have a soapbox moment here because mainstream media in America about gaming is a shit fest. Okay,
Mhm.
they blame every mass shooting on people that play violent, gory video games. Like, okay, Call of Duty Modern Warfare. We all know that was a rough time, but you don't have to bring it up every time some mentally ill person decides that they have an issue with someone. You don't
Mhm.
have to bring that up. We're not all that way. There is a clean divide for most of us, and when I say most, I mean a very large
Vast
majority.
majority. Yes.
Yeah, like it's a huge majority, 99.9. There is a clear divide in our gaming personality and our real world, what we are like. There is a clear divide there. We don't, imagine walking down the street that everybody's going to shoot me in the head and I need to shoot them first. No, it does. There's no scientific research that says that is linked. It's not true.
Mhm.
Now, stereotypes. Mainstream media. Everybody thinks that people that play video games are living in their mother's basement for the rest of their life,
Mhm.
500 pounds, and they're dumber than a box of rocks and they eat Cheetos all day. Like,
Mhm.
no, there's plenty of people out there that are not any of those things, and some of the best gamers in the world fit none of the bad stereotypes at
Mhm.
all. And I okay, I'm trying not. I am not typically a person to lambast the media. My girlfriend works in TV production for news. That's what she does. She works for a big news organization producing the news, and I have seen her struggle with the media getting lambasted about this type of thing.
Mhm.
And I typically don't do it, but this is one of the areas that I wish American culture would actually open their freaking eyes and understand that in this new age of technology and the internet, younger people that have been doing this are not all maniacs that want to kill everyone.
Yep.
And
Mm-hmm.
if anybody here is from another country, cool. I don't know if it's the same for you. I know a lot of countries around the world look to America for some freaking reason. For a lot of
Yep.
principles. I don't know why they do that because America, if they lived here, they would understand how messed up it is at times, aka what we are
Like
currently
right
going
now.
through. Yeah, I am. I promised myself I wouldn't bring up
Yep, we're
anything
not getting
about.
into that.
Yep.
Not tonight.
No, but case in point, what we're going through, a lot of people look to America as the torch of, what do we need to walk towards? There are plenty of places that still do that. And the fact that America in itself cannot get past this ideology of if you're not either an athletic person or an intellectual calculating numbers and making $300 million a minute, you're basically worthless to society. That there's no other sets of valuable skills.
Yep.
That's the thing that it just blows my mind. And I'm off my soapbox now. My blood pressure is through the roof. I am. The old man is going to go to have a drink.
Okay.
Go for it.
Well, I'm gonna jump in real quick before opening it back up to everyone else. But I feel like the beat drop's been a really great example of equity in gaming because that mindset that the only acceptable versions of people in America are either the athletic or the intellectual have both been found here in our own tranquility community. If you watch a couple of the beat drops, I don't remember. We've done over 20 of them, so excuse me if I get a couple mixed up. But we've had people that have talked about being on football teams and still gaming. We've had people that have been here since since essentially the creation of gaming and the creation of esports and helping create these massive movements that we've seen in the gaming sphere. We've had people that are known to be incredibly huge intellectuals, and the fact that we continue to the media continues to perpetuate these negative stereotypes about gaming, uh, it is just abhorrent because gaming was never or should have never been designed to be subjective or isolating, I guess is the word I'm looking for. It was never supposed to be meant for just some people. Gaming has always been meant for all people, or should have been meant for all people, because we can all find our place in them. If you watch one person playing Minecraft on Twitch versus another person playing Minecraft on Twitch, they're playing the same game in totally different ways. Some people are really organized. Some people could care less what goes in what crate and probably have a million different spaces filled with the exact same thing over a million crates. But they still enjoy the game nonetheless. We have people from all different walks of life that look at games so much differently. Whether it's enjoying the lore aspect, whether it's just kind of a mindless activity to kind of get them out of their head for just a moment to be able to think clearly, because that's the only way that they can find to escape. I mean, that is the power of gaming. And yet we still live in a culture, at least in America and probably in some others around the world, where gaming is not an acceptable form of entertainment. So I'll open it back up to y'all after I've stepped off my soapbox now.
I'm gonna
oh.
keep mine short and simple, and I think just the media overall. I think a lot of people look to it for just a lot of their information, and because of that, there's a lot of misinformation spread around, not just about gaming, but about all topics. And I feel like that just leads to a lot of negativity. It leads to a lot of arguing because people don't necessarily do as much fact checking. They'll just turn on the news. They'll see this, and they'll be like, I blame this. And I think that's one of the things that's happened with video games. Yeah, that's kind of mostly what I have to say about it. I don't know if anyone else has comments to add on to that, to branch out.
Well, like, okay. A while back, I was working at a veterinary clinic. This would be about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. But during one of our staff meetings, we had someone new, and my boss was kind of forcing us all to introduce ourselves. And I was like, well, I play a lot of video games in my free time. And like, that was the end of my introduction. And she was like, oh, what kind of video games do you play? And I was like, well, I play some first person shooters, I play some puzzle games, etc. And immediately she went to, oh, so you'd be the school shooter.
What?
And
That would
yeah,
have tilted
No
me into the next
way.
generation. I would have
immediately.
lost it.
Wow.
Like you could feel the awkwardness in the room as soon as she said it. I was like, no, I mostly play support.
Wow.
Like I didn't know how to respond to that.
I would have.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean,
I would have been gone. I would have been gone.
As shitty as that is, I think we should remember that like people like them who feel that way are definitely more the minority.
Oh yeah, totally. Like everyone else, like, oh yeah, that's super cool. Like gaming, that's really nice. And just like the way my boss reacted, I was kind of just like, well, I'm glad I'm quitting. Because I was already quitting to move, and I was kind of just like, yep, goodbye.
Holy goodness. That, wow. And I think we should also add in on this as well, that there are a lot of different things that come into what has happened with the mass shootings in America and around the world. Sometimes it's mental health related, sometimes it's not as well. Honestly, there are some bad people in the world that make conscious decisions to hurt other people. And that's part of the reason why we're talking about this tonight, is because in gaming there are people out there that choose to take to the gaming sphere where you would hope that the way that gaming continues to progress is supposed to be accepting and a realm of equity for all, literally go to gaming just to put other people down and to make other people feel hurt and disgusted with the kind of person that they are just for existing. And comments like that, I just, wow. Wow, I have no idea how I would even respond to something like that. I honestly don't.
Yeah.
That is
an ugly moment for me.
That would be incredibly ugly. I can't say I wouldn't swing. That's all I gotta say. I can't say I wouldn't swing.
It'd be rough.
Because my blood is kind of boiling right now after something like that. Woo! All right. So, what other stereotypes do you all hear about when it comes to gamers? Like we've talked about, okay, we're all overweight in our mom's basement, and apparently we're all school shooters. So, what other things do you see perpetuated by the media about gaming?
This was brought up before, but I've had the benefit in my life that I can share my gaming experience with the people closest to me without fear of judgment. However, uh, in a more, I guess, public sense, I tend to be more reserved about who I talk about it with because a lot of people will look at me and they'll see it as, "Oh, okay, well, this is your crutch, pretty much. This is just your escape from reality. This is your unhealthy way of coping with the things with the issues that you have."
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that's always really, really bothered me because it it's not a crutch. It it's one of the biggest things that helps me. I have friends that I've made through gaming that I they're always there for me if I need them. They check on me, and they are my greatest source of support.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think to augment that, I mean, whoever is saying that is obviously smoking crack because I mean, any kind of
Yep.
any kind of media in general is a sense of escapism and serves as a distraction. Movies, TV shows, video games, even sports. When you go to watch a soccer game or football or whatever
Yep.
it is that you personally enjoy,
Yep.
it's all escapism. It's all meant for that exact reason. So definitely not a crutch. Yeah, I think whoever said that is an idiot.
And I feel like going a little bit back to the previous question that we had when we saw the eruption of esports on ESPN. I feel was the biggest backlash in mainstream media that we've seen in the gaming sphere in a long time, because so many people that were into sports were like, what are all these people doing sitting in the stands watching these other people play video games? It's like, you're not on the field playing football.
Yep.
like
Oh.
like what, why are you sitting here for 100 some
Oof.
odd years watching people throw a bag of air around the field? Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like,
And then I guess I'm acting more as the foil with this for a lot of positivity. I mean, no, I completely agree, and a lot of the responses and tweets that were coming out from mainly people of an older generation, I feel were the main ones kind of perpetuating that.
yep.
And seeing some come to the defense of esports players has been incredible. Mainly Gordon Hayward, who is a very big league player, very big PC gamer. When esports was really beginning to take off several years ago, I watched a clip of him on Colin Cowherd's show. If you've never heard of Colin Cowherd, that's fine. Fuck him. But basically, Colin Cowherd was like playing a clip from like a fighting game, like esports tournament, and was just full on like making fun of it, like you fish what you were talking about, basically like full on stereotyping like every single person that's into it. And Gordon Hayward, a pro basketball player, came on and was like defending, like esports as an industry and players and gamers in general. So
Wow.
I think seeing that was pretty incredible. But yeah, I had forgotten about that because I think it was the Overwatch League finals were on ESPN,
Yep.
and
Yep.
people
That
were
was awesome.
absolutely oh yeah, it was absolutely incredible, and people were losing their minds about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
But what are you gonna do?
Yep. Pretty much. there's not a whole lot that can be done about it, and especially during, and I think that we're in an interesting predicament, I guess, an unfortunate one, but interesting nonetheless when we talk about COVID, because how difficult was it for esports to transition vice traditional sports?
Light and like night and day.
Pretty much.
We've been sitting in dark rooms for 20 years.
Yeah,
What's
I
wrong?
mean, there's really been very few differences. Like, the casting things were probably a little bit difficult to get organized. It takes a lot of equipment and stuff to be set up at everyone's homes to get that going. But honestly, like, I feel like esports and just gaming in general has provided a lot for people that may not have that may traditionally prior to now had just written it off. And when we were talking about like older generations getting into gaming, like just recently I had posted on my Facebook that I was doing the charity stream I did a while back, and that I was having a video made and was talking about my casting and stuff like that, which I don't typically do a lot on my Facebook. That's more for just like my regular everyday life. And my mom and dad, who are like in their 50s or 60s now, were like, "Hey, when's the next time you're gonna be on? We would love to see you cast." And I'm like my mind just blew. I was just like,
Oh.
"Wait, what? You want to see me do what?"
Oh, that made my heart fuzzy.
Yeah,
Oh.
like for me,
Yeah, that's
that was such a big thing that my parents, who I can't say have really a huge connection to gaming other than probably through their kids. Like I know that my sisters and I play Pokemon Go is probably the biggest connection that we have in gaming, but I'm definitely the avid gamer amongst us all. And just to hear that from them was just like, wow. And of course, my mom's next comment was like, "You thought we wouldn't watch, didn't you?" And I'm like, "No, not really."
No.
Like it
Mm-mm.
wasn't that I expected that you wouldn't still come watch. It was just that if you didn't, like I wasn't going to feel bad about it if that happened. And I
It wasn't
think,
an expected thing.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was like if you were here, like that's super great, but if you weren't, it also wasn't going to hurt my feelings, because I know that there's kind of a generational divide with gaming in that aspect, and kind of esports in general. So for me, it was like that was a huge thing, like seeing, I guess the opposite of the question we're asking right now, seeing a stereotype broken, is people willing to go beyond their um, conceptions of what gaming looks like, and being open to saying, "Hey, like I'll check this out," because I mean, who does it hurt to just kind of open up and be like, "Hey, like I'll just check this out, see if I enjoy it, and if I do, I do. I don't, I don't. No skin off my nose if it doesn't end up being a big thing, you know." So,
Mm.
all right. Does
To
anyone go
I
ahead?
have one more thing. To
All right.
harken back a little bit to what Vila was saying about people coming into the defense of esports. In my mindless 3 a.m. Facebook scrolling one evening, I came across this video, and I cannot remember for the life of me what the creator organization was that did this, but they got a group, and I'm sure it's not the first time it's been done, obviously, but it blew my mind. They had a group of current active duty Marines from the United States military to
Hmm.
play a 8v8 paintball game against some really, really high level Call of Duty competitive players. Like, this was a year ago when this happened.
Interesting.
And how they kind of equalized the playing field just a little bit is the Marines, who are used to being in the field under gunfire, and they're used to it being loud and not being able to hear much, they didn't have like anything. But what they did for the gamers is they put them all on wireless headsets with microphones on them,
Oh my god.
kind of like what Marines would use in the field to communicate each other with like radios.
Yep.
And they gave that to the gamers for this game. And the gamers just, and I know there's no gun handling or anything like that going on, but it's just paintball. The gamers actually put up a legitimate um fight for it, and I think the Marines ended up winning because and the format was like a capture the objective, kind of like capture the flag, but it was a capture and hold, kind of
Yep.
like King of the Hill in Overwatch. And the gamer, I think they did like 7 games, and it was 4-3, and
Wow.
it was not a convincing win for the Marines, because gamers, even though it's not a real firefight, like we do kind of have the brain if you're a first person shooter player. That's the first caveat. We learn how to, like, hide behind a corner, or peek out and look at something, and and then call that out, or
Mhm.
like that interaction. There are a lot of other skills that we get that transfer into the real world, and those Marines actually came forward, and after the whole thing was over, and was like, yeah, we won the whole thing. But honestly, the fact that we didn't win 4-0 at best out of 7 means we really didn't win this. we have been training our whole lives for combat scenarios and how to do stuff like this. And they sit behind a computer and they understand some of the bigger intricacies of what we do. And they do some of the same things that we do because there is a certain level of similarity between the two things as far as the mental aspect of it. Now, I mean, we don't get shot at by crazy people or whatever, but we, our engagements in first person shooters are kind of similar in a lot of ways. And I've always thought that was really cool that some active duty Marines were like, mad respect, you actually stood a chance, and that's crazy.
Yep.
And I thought that was cool. Okay, I'm good.
And I think that that's an interesting point that you bring up there, because the military has certain branches of the military have actually gone out of their way to recognize and also enhance gaming in that aspect. Like for myself, I'm part of the U.S. Army esports organization, just like a member of their server as a veteran. But just knowing that there was something available like that, and that they use it as part of their recruiting. Like they have people that are essentially dedicated to being active duty gamers, which I think is really cool. Like
Speaking
that's
of the
mind
U.S.
blowing,
Army
isn't it?
esports, the Flying Lions actually scrimmed one of their teams at one point.
Really?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
How'd that go?
We won.
Well, USA, you got some improvement to do, but we love you nonetheless. But yeah, it was just interesting to see that kind of overlap, because using games in scenarios like that, like we're seeing this a lot with virtual reality gaming.
Yeah.
Trying to create like these realistic scenarios that people can actually, because the best practice that you get is putting your body through the motions. Like you can learn about it in the classroom all you want, but if you haven't been in a firefight, you're not going to really know how you're going to react until you've been there. And so using things like Call of Duty or various different simulations of, whether it be warfare, firefighting, various, search and rescue, like so many things that can be simulated now in the gaming sphere, I think is absolutely huge. I mean, one of the biggest things that was talked about this year was, I don't know how many of y'all watch Game Theory, but they were talking about the corrupted blood plague in World of Warcraft back in early 2000s, I want to say. The fact that it mimicked so closely what happened with the coronavirus.
Yep, I saw that article.
And was just like, there were people literally reaching out to Blizzard saying, like, we want to study this. And Blizzard's like, oh, no, it's just a game. It's not a big deal. It's like, no. Like we understand that this could actually happen. And we are now experiencing this. This is happening in our real lives. And to see that kind of interaction, that, again, when we're talking about mainstream media, very rarely gets spoken about, but is such a huge impact into how some people either train or prepare or simulate upcoming events in their lives to try to get ahead of what we could possibly be seeing in the future. So I think that's I want to see that. I hope that that's a continuance, that will continue to go forward. But let's go ahead and move on to our next question. Excuse me. How do you feel free speech, so talking about kind of the American ideal of what free speech is, plays a role in the toxicity of gaming? I think we've covered this a little bit so far, so I just want to delve a little bit deeper into what we consider free speech and how it impacts gaming.
Oh boy.
Do you have to get your soapbox again there, Fish?
Maybe. I will also offer to go last. I know I talk a lot. You guys can tell me to shut up whenever you want to. I talk all the time. I don't shut up. Okay. I'm going to blast out over the airwaves that envision in your mind a big, bold, times 64 font word in red called opinion. Okay? That's what
Okay.
this is. I do not speak universal truth for the entire universe. I'm not that arrogant. However, if we're talking about Americanized free speech, this is my opinion.
Okay.
And this ties back. I've tried not to touch this subject a few times as we've been talking because a lot of these questions kind of start to, blur together because they're all kind of similar. And free speech in itself is a very gray concept. There is no black and white about it to me. Once again, all opinion. Going to keep saying that. There's no there is no black and white. It is very hard to 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 keep free speech and not literally say anything goes. Now, you can talk about free speech that incites violence. You can talk about these different, but that's adding caveats. But if you just talk about free speech in gaming, that the reason that free speech plays such a big part is the fact that it's anonymous. That's one of the big things is that those two things go hand in hand. I don't think outside of absolutely blatant like racism, and we all know what I'm talking about, um, in a game, that it's not really policeable. It really isn't. You're going to end up causing a Pandora's box level nightmare if you try to police it properly. Because at the end of the day, Americanized free speech is it's romanticized in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be the government can't suppress um, bad critique. That's like the big thing about it is the
Yep.
government's not supposed to go and say you can't say bad things about the government. It's anti-totalitarian. Free speech is not in the traditional American constitutional sense a blanket statement for literally everybody to be an asshole. That's like that's I am a poli sci econ major. That's kind of what my thing is. It's not supposed to be you can be an asshole for free. It's supposed to be the government can't tell you not to critique it.
Yep.
However, the United States Constitution is what's the word vague on purpose because it's not supposed to be a every rule is written out type of thing.
Yep.
In gaming in particular, lately and toxicity, it plays a huge role because people have free speech. They're just going to say whatever they want because it's anonymous. It's more the fact that it's anonymous than I think that it's free speech. Because free speech, yeah, you can say whatever the hell you want. No one's ever going to do anything to you. But it's even more so because you're not standing, kind of like what Vila said earlier, face to face with that person, reading that person's emotions, feeling that I am hurting another human being with my words. You don't get that ethos,
Yep.
pushed onto you. So, is it policeable? I don't think so. I don't think there is a single thing we can do about it in the Americanized sense of free speech without someone, lawyering up and going and suing someone because America loves lawsuits. Um, I think free speech is always going to be an issue, but I think it is if you start to label and specify free speech, you open up so many loopholes and you start throwing away a lot of bigger overarching freedoms that I think at the end of the day you just accept that some people on the planet are shitheads and you just move on and take a deep breath. That's me. If you completely disagree with me, that's fine. I love you anyway. It takes all sorts of opinions to make the world go round. But that's what I think. And there you go.
In a lot of ways, I kind of echo Fish. I have a pretty, I think, simplistic view on it, and that's that I'm a firm proponent of free speech. Even if I don't agree with what somebody is saying or think it's wrong, I think people should be able to say what it is they want to say. And then I think it's on us as just kind of everyone else to be able to kind of like pick apart their argument or kind of like show them why they might be wrong. And I'm not for, you know, another thing that transcends gaming is how I kind of initially phrased it in like text document of like free speech versus hate speech, and people who are along the lines of we should make like X or Y word illegal or something to that effect because like it's hate speech. And of course, the problem is when you start going down that road, where do you draw the line? And who is the governing body of what is now hate speech and what isn't?
Mm-hmm.
So even though there's still many things that I don't at all agree with people saying and think that yes, we shouldn't say, you know, X or Y, you know, many obvious examples come to mind, that again I still value that freedom more than anything else, and think people should be able to say what it is they want to say and not be hindered by any kind of regulation or anything on it. A big example that comes to mind for me is an actual law in Canada. And it's that if you misgender someone in Canada, you can be arrested and put in prison or fined. And
Whoa,
like
what?
obviously, yes, like do not
Yeah.
misgender people. Misgendering people intentionally and like dead naming is wrong. Don't do it. It's bad.
Oh, intentionally.
But
Okay. I was about to
either
say,
either way.
whoa!
So like either way, it's what I'm saying. Like even if
Yep.
it's intentional, like yeah, you shouldn't be arrested for that. Like I strongly object to that as a law and as like a full on federal rule.
Any others like to give their thoughts on this subject?
The first time I got gendered correctly, I cried because I was like, "Wow, this is me." So, that is my input.
And I think that's an important aspect of this is to kind of condense it all down. Free speech does not mean that you are free of punishment. I think
Yes.
is an important aspect of this.
Yes.
And that's actually going to tie into our next question here very shortly. So, sure, you have the right to be a jerk all you want to be. But just remember that people do have the right to hold you accountable for your actions. Like, yes, there's a certain amount of anonymity on the internet.
It's hard, isn't it? It's hard, isn't
What's
it?
the enemy?
It's the
Yeah, it's
anonymity. But the internet is also a very powerful place. You have no idea how much of your information is actually on it, and if people truly want to hold you accountable,
Cancel
they
culture.
can find a way.
Oh, good lord. Oh, jeez.
They can
That's
find a
that's
way
another
to hold you
conversation all in
accountable.
itself.
So,
But yeah, if you say something online, yep, it's there forever.
Yep.
No matter what.
It doesn't go away.
Yep. You can delete a tweet, you can do all that jazz, but someone will still find it. So be very wise about how you treat others on the internet. It can really come back to bite you. So, as I said, that kind of leads into our next question, and we're going to go back to kind of going down the line so that everybody gets a chance to speak for these last couple of ones. So, starting again with Fishbowl and working our way down. In what ways do you as gamers feel that we as a community, whether it be in Trank, whether it be in Overwatch or in gaming as a whole, could contribute to make gaming a more equitable space for everyone?
Well, what can we do? There's a lot of things we can do. I think the people in this room, particularly, all have a good grasp of how to continue to make our communities as equitable as possible. Like we don't. It's actually so simple to do so. Like, just don't be an ass. It is have some common decency, have some general human respect. And here's the thing: in gaming, in our realm of gaming, I can't say the word. The anonymous word, that one.
The sea anemone.
The sea anemone. I can't say it, but that's it. That kind of helps us not be dicks, if that makes any sense, because there isn't a physical, visible person on the other side of your conversation that you can see. It is so easy to just not be an asshole. Just respect. Don't say something that's absolutely inflammatory, that's going to possibly absolutely send somebody off on a tangent or give them a panic attack, or don't assume that you know who everyone is all of the time, like as soon as you meet them. It like and hold people accountable. Like, just help. Everybody in the community has to police its own community. Like, we can't. There is no quote unquote government of gaming that walks around and polices it and makes sure everyone is playing nice. It's up to every individual member and the people that are in administrators of these micro communities to do something similar. We have to do that together. It is not a one thing or one person can make all of the difference. No, it's thousands of hundreds of thousands of people can make little differences that make the community better over time. Nothing on the planet happens overnight. No bad thing, no good thing happens instantly. They're all a process of time. And all we can do is take deep breaths every day, treat human beings like human beings first, and just be kind to one another. It's really important. There you go.
Yeah, I echo that. The only thing I can really think of off the top of my head is like if we say, for example, are in a game of Overwatch and somebody is throwing out slurs or just something to that effect. Yeah, just kind of policing each other and making it very well known that those things just aren't socially acceptable, and just holding each other accountable, like Fish said.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. I was done.
Taking taking it back to more minor instances of toxicity and stuff, like everybody's had an instance where they've gotten toxic at a video game, but like most headsets have a mute mic button. Discord has a mute button. Overwatch, you can mute yourself. If you have something toxic to say, just mute yourself. Honestly, like what good are you doing by putting it out there?
All right.
Yeah, kind of an echo chamber. You can't really, not by yourself at least, you can't really stop everything. It's kind of up to people to just unanimously agree and to kind of point out, hey, this is kind of cringe, bro. You shouldn't say that. And that's really the most you can do. Of course, people with more like power, for example, Yeti. He has a lot of influence within the community, so he could probably do more. But not as much your everyday gamers could do.
Gotcha. Want to introduce PDK. Originally was supposed to join us in the beginning, but had some stuff come up last minute and is now free to join us. We're just finishing up here, PDK, but feel free to interject as you will with these final couple questions and give us your feedback. So,
my fellow Carson.
So who are we missing so far that hasn't put in? I guess Cinnamon and PDK. What do you feel as gamers a community can do to contribute to making gaming a more equitable space for all people?
I actually thought of something that I should have done for my own Discord a while back, but maybe creating a role where for pronouns, like a reaction role to pronouns, so people don't intentionally or accidentally misgender people. I always have my pronoun and my nickname, just so people don't misgender me. But normalizing something like that is one step to equality, not just for those who are cisgender and heterosexual, but for the LGBTQ community in general.
Mm-hmm. All right. How about you, PDK?
I feel like the biggest thing is like kind of what I like have like my sense about is I never really I never like to assume. I don't think a lot of people, like it doesn't. But normally if I it's like I always ask like, hey, like can I call you this? Can I call you that? Or what do you prefer to be called by? Normally, like I can kind of gauge, but at the same time, it's kind of just like disrespectful if I just put something out there. So normally what I like to do, and I feel like everyone can do, is maybe shoot him a private DM. Send him like an
Yep.
Overwatch thing. Hey, like what do you like? What do you like? What do you like to be called by?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just like guessing, because that can also negatively affect their. I don't know how to put it. It just makes it feel like an awkward situation, and disrespects them as a person.
Gotcha.
Just out of curiosity, Cinnamon, what is your experience with that? Would you rather someone like ask you, come out and be very forward and ask, or would you, like, how would you prefer that interaction go? Since I don't know if anyone else here is, not, I don't, what is the word?
Cisgender.
There you go.
Cisgender is the word you're
That
looking
one.
for.
There you go.
That's a really difficult question to answer because it depends on how comfortable I am, if that makes sense. If I am comfortable in a space in a community, then I will straight up tell people, hey, my name is Jace and I prefer the pronouns they, them. If people want to like ask me, if people want to ask me questions about it, like my DMs are open, please ask me. I had a conversation with someone like yesterday about it. But like in a space where I'm uncomfortable, where I'm new, I would much prefer like either people introduce themselves with their own pronouns, just to like normalize it, if that makes sense. To make me
Definitely.
feel comfortable, like, hey, this is a space where I can say, hey, these are my pronouns. But if it's kind of if it even remotely seems like there even possibly is a bias against those who are not cisgender, I won't say anything. I won't do anything. I will literally let people misgender me because I don't want to, because
Yeah.
I feel like if I make them uncomfortable, it will come back as an attack on me.
I'm just curious. Thank you for
Yeah,
answering
for
that,
sure.
because I think there are probably a lot of people out there that see that kind of thing, and they have a suspicion that someone is cisgender, but they don't know how to go about. Um, they don't want to hurt someone's feelings. They don't want to make someone feel awkward. They don't want to, disrespect someone, but at the same time, they don't know how to not do so. And I think that's another thing. And that's not just gaming. That's society. Is we need we need normalization of these concepts. We need people to be educated in how to have these conversations and not to make people feel ostracized for it. And I think that's a big conversation for a lot of people.
I can definitely agree with that. My a couple of things that I want to tie in here to this. First off, um, standing on putting my caster hat on. As casters, whether pro or not pro, you should always address gamers by their preferred pronouns. Period. Otherwise, refer to them as they, them. I have quite literally, during my time as a caster, have come in contact with pro casters that refuse to use proper pronouns, that will always go by he, him. And that is disrespectful, that is alienating, and it is not acceptable. Just absolutely not acceptable. And you should not be in a position of power like that if you're not going to do that. I think that that's one great thing that we have here in our community is not only does your registration sheet have your preferred pronouns, whether or not your GM or captain fills them out is a different story, but at least we have them there to double check on, as well as I know I go out of my way to make sure that that I identify as many players as I can. Otherwise, I'll just use they, them when casting. So that's a big beef that I have with like upper tier Overwatch and just esports in general is the fact that that is not kind of a mandate that is set, and it happens far too often. And I think the to talk about making gaming an equitable space, I think just comes to just everyday respect. I've heard far too often lately that there are gaming communities like Tranquility that hold much bigger tournaments at much larger elos that are much more toxic, and that is an acceptable state to be in. And I don't think it should be. I don't think that's the standard it should be. Yes, we have like I said earlier, we have free speech, but you will also should be held accountable for said free speech. You do not just get to spout off whatever you want and not be held accountable for it. And I think that our community does a great job of that, not only in our the rules that we have, but the fact that we have like my job and other people's job in this community as community liaisons. That's our job, is to literally help people navigate those gray areas of toxicity and to try to make things better for everyone. And I feel like that is something that a lot of communities should start adopting, should really start looking into, because the more and more that gaming becomes so widespread, the more this is going to be a prevalent issue. And if you don't take care of it now, I can almost guarantee you it will drive your organization under. Because then all you're going to be left with are those really toxic assholes that don't give a crap when all those wonderful people that made your community so strong just give up because they're tired of fighting. I've seen it all too often in a couple communities I've been with, and I feel that taking an offensive rather than a defensive stance to toxicity in gaming is a huge step that any community can take to make it more equitable for all. So, next one we got here is again, this is an individual question. We kind of went all around, but everybody got a chance to share, so that's fine with me if you all want to do it that way. What ways do you all wish gaming companies would contribute to making gaming for more equitable for all? So we've talked about the communities kind of around the games. Now I want to talk about more the companies in charge of the games. What do you wish they would do to make gaming more equitable?
The biggest thing that stands out to me is something I alluded to earlier, which is inclusivity with, I think, characters included that doesn't come off in a way that's pandering. A good example I can think of that isn't gaming related, but Jordan Peele, who has directed 2 movies, Get Out and then Us. So, of course, Jordan Peele is African American. Get Out, if anyone isn't familiar with it, is like very obvious racial themes. And then Us, same thing. It's a predominantly black cast, but he himself has said, like, yeah, there's no like racial themes in this. You know, I just wanted to have a cast that's African American. They're a black family, and it should just be more normal to have that in movies and shows and games without it having to be an integral part of their character, which is something I very strongly agree with. So I think just seeing more of that in gaming, again, some of my knowledge, Last of Us 2 did that fairly well. But again, I don't really know too much about that game, but that's just what I've heard. But yeah, just more of that in ways that come off as being at least kind of genuine and just kind of normal without being pandering.
Okay.
I think that, and I've said this, I'm going to keep echoing it. I think a lot of gaming companies have a lot to learn from Overwatch, Blizzard, what they've done with Overwatch. I think Overwatch has done it beautifully. They have managed to integrate inclusivity into their cast, into their roster of heroes without the pandering, in my opinion. They did not make characters this way after they got pandered for, or they got yelled at for it. They didn't they didn't retroactively fix these problems. They came forward with these very unique, lovely, beautiful characters that are staples of our perceptions of gaming now, that they came forward with those up front and said, "Hey, these," and everybody loved them, and we saw past, identity and saw amazing characters that we could relate to as human beings. And I think a lot of people could learn that from Overwatch, Blizzard. Like I said, I try not to give Blizzard too much credit, but when it comes to this, I think Overwatch has been a grand slam, and I think a lot of people could learn from how well they did that.
All right. We got 4 more, folks. Pick your order how you want to do it.
I'll go next.
Okay.
I think echoing off of what Fishbowl said, like how Blizzard did it, they did it beautifully. All the inclusivity. I think another thing, like just off like the gaming companies and even like the hardware like makers for games, I think one of the most like the predominant one that has showed inclusivity in my opinion is Razer and how they've done it. They've done a good job. I think a lot of companies like that make gaming hardware and make like the all that for the games as well have a big role to play in inclusivity with gaming.
Mm-hmm.
Like the hardware that goes into it, there's not a lot of widespread. It's like one dominant thing and nothing else. And I think I think a lot of companies can do a whole lot of different things that can make gaming feel a lot more inclusive to different people, instead of just it being like one, like how Razer did it. They had different like sets of keyboards and mouse and headsets, and like I think companies can really like learn off of that. I think that's a big thing that drive people to play games is the hardware. But I think with people not being shown this is accepted, like just the hardware that they see, there's no, I don't really know how to put it, but I think like the hardware companies can do a really good job to help attract more people, like just with the way they include, because I can't word things that good.
That's all right.
So
Are you talking like marketing, like
Yeah.
design of products, like they can,
Like
like we were
stuff
talking
like
about you weren't here for it, so this is something that Jack or Captain Jack brought up. The toy aisle at Walmart. Well, it has always been guy section, girl section, gaming
Mhm.
hardware, one design. Like it's
Yep.
it's the typically masculine most of the time. That if that's what you're going for, then I completely agree.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to say, but you worded it better than me. So
But I think it's also important to look at the aspect that Velo was saying as well. We don't want it to be pandering, so it's also
Yes.
not. It's not just blue and pink everything. It's not
Yeah.
super pretty for the girls and super rough and
Yeah.
masculine for the guys. So
I
I think.
think that. Oh, sorry, I cut you off.
Nope, go ahead.
I was just kind of saying that because like with gaming, it's a lot more just men that play games more than other people, and I think that like the hardware companies can do like a good job with inclusivity with that, and that's kind of what the point I was bringing up.
Yep. And I think that that's a continued assumption that keeps being made, is that it's not so much that men are the majority that play games, but they are the most marketed to for video games. So trying to increase your boundaries, folks, when we're talking about video games. All right, we still have I think Vet, Rainbow, and Cinnamon. So
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to go first or?
Sure. One thing I think gaming companies could do a lot more, and just like companies in general, is ask like women for input. Because like in a lot of the older games, you would have armor that covered almost nothing, and
Oh yeah.
and you'd be like, "What is this? Why is this?"
Gosh.
And
I'm
you
pretty
know,
sure that's still a thing. To be completely honest, it's
Okay.
so.
I'm
gross.
sure in other games it's still a thing, but like I love how in a lot of games now they're less provocative, if that makes sense, or at least like overtly provocative. That's nice. I like wearing clothes, and I like it when my characters also wear clothes. Damn it.
Cinnamon, you don't run into battle in a bikini? What's
I
going
don't
on?
run into battle in
What
the
the heck?
bikini. It's
I don't
called
run into
like
battle at all.
self-image anxiety, bro. But like something like that. Like if you had women, input, hey, this might look better, like from someone else's perspective instead of like pandering to the guys like play a female character because she's hot.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, that'd be really nice. That's pretty much it. That was my whole spiel about armor and wearing armor.
All right. I'm going to just go ahead and continue the echo chamber of just following kind of Blizzard's model. Biggest thing for me is it's just try not to create every character the same. Just especially with Overwatch, whenever Overwatch creates a new character, they sit down, they think, okay, this is the character's origin. They build an entire backstory for the character before they even build some of the abilities for it. And then sometimes they'll model characters or they'll model the abilities around that character. And even the skins, they'll model around the culture of that character. And then I think it's just don't have every character with the same background. If your story is real, or if your game is real story intensive, if it's something like original Mario Bros, for example, then I don't think you really need deep lore with that game. Like we brought up Gmod earlier, there's no lore at all. There's not really much you can do it's like already kind of the most you can do there with just users creating the player models.
Mine isn't necessarily from a software perspective and more from a hardware perspective.
Okay.
I suffer from a physical condition called an essential tremor. And to basically sum up what it's like in the simplest way possible is it mimics the physical symptoms of Parkinson's. So my hands shake, and sometimes it does cause me to stutter, and it causes other parts of my body to tremble. Um, and I always thought it would be really cool if a company would make like a mouse that could pick up if there was a sudden jolt in movement and kind of smooth it out a little bit or something like that. Kind of similar to how they have the little forks that stabilize themselves for people who have shaky hands, but like in mouse form.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah, those farts are badass. You can like throw those bitches up and down, and that stuff don't come off.
Yeah.
Those things are cool.
But
Very
no,
useful technology.
I'll play a game of Overwatch and somebody will get on to me like how could you miss that sleep dart? It was right in the Roadhog was ulting right in front of you, and I'll just be like, listen, man, I told my hand to move like a centimeter to the left, and my wrist was like, no.
Yeet! I
My wrist.
yeeted the mouse across the room. Oh man, I gotta agree. Especially when it comes to the physicality of games, that's something that really should be huge for gaming companies. And we've been toting Blizzard a lot tonight, but I actually have to give a little backlash to
Oh
what
boy.
we've seen from Blizzard. Because honestly, I don't feel like it's inclusive enough. I feel like a lot of the characters in Overwatch are whitewashed, to be completely
Okay.
honest with you. Many of the racial characters are either Omnics or have just recently become heroes. So technically, our first actual African American hero was Batiste. because Orisa is an Omnic, doesn't that's technically their race, although voiced by an African American voice actress. But I mean, I feel like there's still a lot more growing to do. Blizzard is a great example. I won't disagree with that. You have other examples like Gearbox with the Borderlands series. Like, not a big deal that Hammerlock was gay, just part of the story. And there are other characters in that game too that are LGBTQ or various races and culturally different and things like that. So I think that's a huge thing that gaming companies need to look into, whether it be just making it that it's normal to see a variety of people in gaming, that it's not just the guy saving the day. Well, let me digress. It is not the white straight male saving the day every time. It's not the Doomslayer, it's not Duke Nukem, it's not Master Chief. Like, we have all variety of heroes.
I also want to add that if you have a variety of heroes, make them authentic. Like, when May's voice line, for example, let's just go back to that.
Okay.
The classical Chinese poem. Like, other people won't recognize it, but for me, like, growing up hearing these classical Chinese poems or Chinese operas, that kind of stuff, I picked that up right away. I was like, that's authentically Asian right there. Or like how in Black Panther, where they actually took authentic like things from authentic African like cultures, and they somehow blended it into this amazing universe.
Yeah.
Like, that kind of stuff. Don't just have diversity just to have diversity, like Vila was saying earlier. Don't just don't do it just to pander to your audience. Do it because you want it to be authentic and you want your audience to appreciate it.
Yep. That's
And
something.
then
go ahead.
I was just gonna say really quickly, not to like split hairs with you. Like, I don't disagree about like your racial topic, but we did have well more before Baptiste. We had Doomfist, Sombra, Ana, Farah, Symmetra.
Good point. I forgot about Doomfist.
But yeah, just
I don't play Doomfist.
I'm just protecting you. It's all right.
That's why I forgot. It's like, Doomfist, whatever. But yeah, you're absolutely correct. I mean, we have had more. We've had more. I won't say a lack of racial diversity, but if you look at the cast as a whole, there's definitely more of a leaning to one direction than there is to many others. So I think that's kind of an important aspect to look at. And we've talked about the pandering, we've talked about various other aspects in gaming as well. I'm trying to think. I want to say that there was something else that I was thinking of. And with all that, freaking pay your people right.
Yep.
And those of us that are buying games, don't complain when the games get a little bit more expensive. Like, these people put a lot of work into stuff like this, and for us to just like sit there and complain, and for companies to shortchange them because they're trying to save money because we don't want to spend more, like, that's wrong. That's wrong. People put a lot of love into games like these. The ones that got me probably the first time around was like the Assassin's Creed series, and the amount of history and backstory that they invest into those kind of games. And now they're branching out into various, like, Assassin's Creed 3 was Native American based during the I want to say it was the Revolutionary War period. I don't know. It's been a while since that one took place, but just know that there's a lot of work that goes into this, and as consumers, we have to know that there's a little bit of a responsibility on us to make sure that people are getting their worth, but it's also especially on the companies that are going around shortchanging all these amazing creators that do not get the value that they are contributing to these games. So, last question that I have for us before we
I have one more thing.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
One thing, real quick.
Yep.
Back to what Rainbow said about like the physical, disability thing about gaming and some of those things. At the end of the day, games are made for people to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I think especially in the competitive side of things, you have a lot of people I'm gonna stay in the Overwatch realm because that's the only game I currently play competitively. But like in the Overwatch realm, there are a lot of people out there that play competitive mostly, and they go into quick play and they lose their shit on people because they're not doing whatever the hell they want them to do, whatever.
Yep.
There are so many people in the world that play video games that are not able, like it's ableistic to expect everyone on the planet to have, you know, for instance, both arms. You can
Yep.
play video games without two hands. There are, interfaces and stuff for people to actually be able to enjoy games without having to be fully physically, I don't want to say normal, but
Yep.
it's you know what I mean. I'm not trying to say that there's anything wrong with them. It's
Yep.
just, and that's important, and it's that thing I brought about earlier about that one of my favorite creators. There's like a quick play mode in another game that I play off and on, and he makes the comment, there are people in those game modes, they may not be, completely and totally like you. They may not be trying their ass off. They might just be here because they like the game and they just want to play
Mm-hmm.
and laugh and have a good time, and that's it. Not everybody is here to grind that SR. Not everyone is here to get better. Some people just log into Overwatch because they love the universe, they love the art, they love the interaction, and they like the game. They don't like it for the competitive. They like it because they have a lot of fun doing it. And that's the only reason they need to play the game. They don't need to try to get better. They just need to have fun. And I think that a lot of people have been calling, and what I've seen on social media, for future competitive games or games that want to be competitive to only have competitive, to only cater to the competitive market of things. Whereas the demographics show that that's not what most people play the games for. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few people. That's it's you cater to the people that make up the majority, and we have to understand, and yes, you don't want to balance Overwatch to quick play. That's not what I'm saying. That
Yep.
would be terrible. But don't go into a quick play scenario and expect everyone to be playing the games for the same reason that you are.
Yep.
Everybody is different, and everybody is physically different, and they're just trying to have fun
Yep.
at the end of the day.
I
I know
think.
plenty of. Oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No.
I think that there are plenty of Tranquility players that play in Tranquility because they just enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
They're not trying to go undefeated. They're not trying to win that championship. It would be nice if they did, but they're just here because they like the community. They like having a better version of quote unquote Overwatch competitive that they can play, and they like being on a team with people that they know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another big part of gaming, and the whole equity thing is, I think that the versions of the reasons for playing games, companies can push that. You can just have fun and play our game. You don't have to be cracked out and, a god widow and just, mechanically gifted, you know, and I
Yep.
think that's big too.
No, I can definitely concur with that. So, going on to our last question before we kind of close everything out. Um, how do you feel we as gamers can take the views that we've talked about tonight about inclusivity in gaming and apply that to our everyday lives? So, this will be another kind of individualistic question. So, we've talked about, the big parts of anonymity and looking at inclusivity in gaming, how toxicity plays a huge role in it. How can we take those aspects, those changes that we want to make in the gaming sphere, and apply those to our everyday lives as well?
Um,
Okay, not me
oh,
this time. Go ahead, Rainbow. Go ahead.
One of the things that I feel we could include into our everyday lives is something you brought up, Jack. Specifically when you talked about casting.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
Um, Usually, from my personal experiences, if I meet somebody new, I either refer to them if they haven't addressed what pronouns they prefer to be uh, called by normally, I will just call them by their name.
Okay.
Or even in most scenarios, I will just strictly refer to people as they them because I don't know. Also, I don't really when I meet new people, it's hard for me to gauge like how comfortable, uncomfortable they would be with me just directly asking them something like that. So, most of the time my rule of thumb is I just refer to them by their name.
Okay.
And I think that's something that is fairly easy for people to incorporate. And I think the other thing which uh would be simple enough to apply to real life is something that I mentioned, and I think I mentioned it at a time where I misinterpreted where the conversation was at specifically. Uh, like I said, online, you don't have to. We all have our moments where we're toxic, where we're being mean. Everybody does. We're human. Um, but to some degree, just think about what you're saying before you say it. Don't put it out there. Just keep it to yourself, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
All right.
mm. Um, like, I think it is really important that gamers, right? We interact like with a lot of people before this before this, you know, podcast. There are people in this chat that I have never talked to before, ever. I have never interacted with several people in here. But when I came in here and we started talking, there was a line of like a level of respect that we all share with each other. And I think speaking for our community that we all know, I think that's a common strata in our, behavior. Um and I think that can definitely be something to carry over. So my point is, don't forget where you come from. You know what gaming is. Like, that is part of you because you do it so often. Don't forget that.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go into the real world and then be the person that um everybody wants you to be. Don't get forced. And I know that's hard. Like, I know, okay, thanks, I'm cured. We know, with the whole anxiety thing
Yep.
and stuff. Thanks. It's like the R slash thanks, I'm cured. But I know it's hard not to slip into what everybody wants you to be. But don't forget where you come from. You know the type of community um that you have to that you come from. So just be that way. Um and I think that can make a difference.
Oh, it seems
Um,
that we had a couple people disconnect there. Not for certain what's
uh,
going on. We'll see if we can bring them back in for the ending. But anybody else want to chime in there?
I think like with like my personal life, it's kind of hard to kind of give like a really good stance on this because I really don't know a lot of people that are not. I don't know how to like that are. I forgot the term cinnamon used. Cisgender, I believe, cisgender.
Yep.
I forgot the term.
Cisgender.
I don't know a lot of people like that just because of my like my state, my age, shit, like stuff like that. But I normally kind of gauge like what Rainbow like kind of echo what Rainbow said. I normally refer to them as like from their name or like a they them standpoint because I think it's just like the mutual respect like you guys should have for each other. Like if you just assume stuff like that, then it's kind of just you can't really respect them as a person because you don't respect them as what they um kind of what they are. Not everyone is the same, and I think people have to like respect that about one another. And I think that's something that we're all struggling like as like an entire the entire world right now. We're not really accepting each other for who we are or what we are. We're kind of just this is what like we have like a perfect outline, like this is what you should be, and I think that needs to be. I think that's the biggest problem we have in the world right now. A lot of other problems, but I think that is a big issue. Just kind of here's the outline. You should be something like this. If you strive out of it, you're gonna be outcasted. You're gonna be bullied, stuff like that. And I think that's the biggest problem we have with our day to day life, and that's kind of. I think that needs to be like our like one of our top priorities as a united front right now.
All right.
I think biggest thing for me, and I'm echoing what Fishbowl said yet again, kinda. Is just straight up have a conversation about it, kind of like we were doing. Um, just talk about it. Whether it's like with friends, or if it's like a coworker, just don't kind of let it go unnoticed, I guess. That's the biggest thing people can do to help change.
All right. Vila, have you gotten to share yet?
No, all I really have is basically don't act like a caricature and exhibit behaviors that would give people more reason to perpetuate negative stereotypes. Basically don't fall into those. And then yeah, I think just in general, we just need to be more open to having conversations with people we might disagree with, instead of immediately lambasting them or projecting things onto them and shifting a bunch of blame and whatnot.
Gotcha. I can definitely concur with what a lot of y'all have said tonight, but I think one thing definitely that needs to be reminded is that although it may exist here, gaming shouldn't be a place for hate. Like, you should not be coming here to look for ways to just hurt other people. Like, I still, for the life of me, cannot understand how people can go about their everyday lives looking to put down other people as a way to build themselves up. It just puts you in a horrible position where, honestly, you're probably just going to be left alone. And I don't understand how anyone would want that. And as we've kind of already noted a couple of times tonight, several places around the world are experiencing this right now, especially in America, where we're very divided on how things are going. And we're not looking to get political or anything here, but know that although there are many differences, your identity is not one of them. You should be accepted for who you are, and you and those that love you should not stand idly by and allow others to negate the identity of who you are because of who they feel they should be. I think that's probably the best place that we can end tonight, is that as gamers, we love the games we play. Many times I would hope that we love the ways that we play them and the characters that we create, but at the end of the day, we should also accept others for the identities that they create and the way that they love playing games. And as long as it doesn't directly impact how like our enjoyment of the game to a certain degree, then that should be okay too. So thank you all to our wonderful guests for joining us tonight. We did have to have a couple jump out because, as usual, when we when we do these podcasts, they actually run a little long. But as much as I've been told to kind of shorten these down, I didn't think that this was one we really could. I feel like we had a lot of important stuff to talk about tonight, and I feel that we did, or at least I hope that we did. So, does anyone have kind of any closing statements that you'd all want to share before we go ahead and close out our night?
Don't be a bad
people.
Our topics tonight are big, meaty, lots of things to talk about. So, if you made it this far listening to it, I would
Congrats.
say congratulations.
Comment this in the comments section.
Yeah, yeah. Give us that YouTube algorithm.
Yeah, we're hitting the 3-hour mark. So if you made it to
Also,
the
wear
end,
your
congrats.
seatbelt.
Yeah.
Wear your
pulling
But,
it on one's out, I see. You are a man of culture. All right.
But,
So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us again.
Absolutely.
Again, as Fishbowl said, these are really big topics. We don't expect solutions within like the first 30 minutes after this video's over. All right, like these are things that we're going to be dealing with for months, if not years from now. So please be kind to one another, you know, be kind to others, and just you know, be good people. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Beat Drop. My name's Captain Jack, and we'll see y'all next time.
Let's drop the beat.